Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm sitting in as the sub co-host of, he's having a sip of beer. So Mr. Cropper is just juicing up the old brain for another brilliant evening of philosophy and just general ballyhoo.
That's right. No, we're going to start
A
off.
sip of beer. So Mr. Cropper is just juicing up the old brain
Oh,
for
do I have
another
a?
brilliant evening of
I've got.
philosophy and
Oh,
just general
shit. I see. I've
ballyhoo.
got something playing in the background.
That's
Hold
right.
on, I'm
No, we're
sorry.
going to start off.
Sip of beer.
Oh, hold on. Here we go.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm sitting in as the sub co-host of,
Come on.
he's having a,
All right. I think I've solved my problem. Are you still there, Todd?
yep.
What a smooth, smart way to start. Jesus. So we just said a bunch of brilliant stuff. Found out we were off air. Should we recap a little bit of what we said about the show tomorrow? Because now we've that took us 15 minutes to say all that stuff. Now we can skip it to the 2 minutes.
Good. And I'm glad we're rolling. So, we're professionals. We have a log, and tomorrow's show, if you're listening to this after the fact, we are on the air through YouTube, live broadcast 11 a.m. Eastern with the State of Mind show, and we have some great stuff tomorrow. And Mr. Cropper's really going to dive into morality, and he's got all of his bits are going to be based on that concept, probably for 2 weeks, because this is a pretty difficult subject. And by the way, I mentioned in the book you just finished that I wrote, I went in and I talked about morality right near the beginning, and I defined it, gave it a standard, which is human life and the health of our mind and body and our ability to live well in the world. And I also talked about those who define the morality of the world that we live in now, and how that morality leads to unhappiness, divorce, unfulfillment, stagnating careers. And then on the worldwide level, it leads to printing of money, kids living at home because the economy is flat and can't get up off its ass. It leads to corruption in many, many, many countries. And this is the philosophy followed by our clergy, followed by our politicians. And what I say in the book is we don't need to follow morality. We need to discover it. And then I go on to talk about what we need to discover.
Now, I don't understand that. That sentence is going to lose me and a lot of viewers. Because what does follow versus discover morality?
The world hasn't discovered morality yet.
Oh, so an individual reader may or may not have. You're saying the world needs to.
Religion has brought morality to the world, but that's fucking bullshit. It's just fucking bullshit.
Oh, so you're saying we don't need to get back to the old Christian way or something like that?
Oh, God, no.
Discover actual non-altruistic objective morality.
Yes, we must discover the kind of morality that's based on precious human life that allows us to live our 70 or 80 years with a lot of love, with a lot of wealth and success and happiness abounding.
Now, which is that?
That's a successful.
Which morality is that?
That's a morality based on the standard is our health of mind and body and our ability to live well in the world. It's based on our true nature.
Everybody has that standard. Socialists have that standard. Everybody has that standard.
No, socialist morality is based on a criminal class that lies to you day and night and day, so they can live with bogus power, unearned wealth, and they're just a bunch of whores.
I know that's the outcome, but what they offer you is freedom and happiness and long life.
It's not moral to offer people free money.
Well, I'm saying that you're offering people happiness and a long life with your morality. That's the standard. It's
at the principle level, yes.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to say that people are going to argue that, I'm playing devil's advocate. I mean, what are you going to say to people who argue what I just said? That everybody's offering that. Marxism offers that.
So no, it doesn't.
Marxism says we'll make everybody happy and they'll all live a long time. And they'll be free and they'll only work as much as they need to and they'll get everything that they need.
But that's not what happiness is. And I say, as we go through the book, I mean, based on that
so we got to plug in rationality or something.
Oh, definitely. At the the very first words out of my mouth after I give you that definition is stay tuned. There's more to this, because you could misinterpret this and think, oh, I could just go kill people because that makes me happy. No, that's immoral. And I also say that you need to live a moral life if you want to have happiness, love, and prosperity. And the first
And why?
put
Why can't I be a liar and cheater and be happy?
because you'll never have genuine happiness. Because never.
What if Donald Trump's a liar and a cheater and he's got billions of dollars?
He'll be discovered. People like, for example, Bernie Madoff. He's a guy who had ill-gotten gain. People don't want to feel self-esteem is the feeling that you feel worthy of being on this earth.
On the example of Bernie Madoff, to illustrate the point you're making, because I'm playing devil's advocate and just poking you in the ribs here a little bit. But Bernie Madoff said that when the FBI came to his door, it was a huge relief.
Mm-hmm.
He knew it was all over. And he said he never had a single night of his whole 40 years of the scam, not one single night of peace.
Right.
And it ruined everything in his family, and it ruined his personality, and it ruined his life.
Right.
And it didn't ruin it when he got arrested. It ruined it long before that. It ruined it every single day, according to him. So that's what it gets you to be a liar and a cheater. Take it from a person who practiced it.
Yeah.
So
genuine earned wealth. It starts with self-esteem. Self-esteem is knowing that you are worthy of being in this world.
Well, where do you get that, though? I mean, when you know, well, I'm just extrapolating from the fact that if you know that you're stealing, lying, and cheating to get your wealth, that if you're playing politics and screwing people and backstabbing and playing politics to rise up the ladder, if you know that that's how you're running your life, you don't feel really worthy because you know you're not worthy. See, then your mental health gets screwed up at the most basic level. It's like a building block of stability of your mind to know that you're living your life well, that you're earning your love, and you're living in harmony with your values. All right,
your values need to be in harmony with your own health.
All right. Keep giving all these sentences. I don't know what you mean. You lost me 3 sentences ago because
when
during the floating abstractions that you didn't tell me what you were talking about.
These are not abstractions.
Well, you said something about harmony and things.
I was talking about your values.
When you say harmony,
your actions in your life. Bernie Madoff, for example, his innate self knows that, and I'm telling you why Bernie Madoff was unhappy. He knows that he had his gains that he made in life were all ill-gotten. He lied, he cheated. Now, it's like if you stub your toe, I wince because I know what that feels like. When you steal from somebody else, you inherently know that you wouldn't want someone stealing from you. Deep down inside, you know that is something that you wouldn't want done to you. It's the golden rule.
All right, and so then there are psychopaths who don't feel that.
That's different.
So
psychopaths are not happy.
Right.
And they're very destructive, and they usually wind up in the penal system. And they wind up with somebody in a relationship, far as love goes, who quickly realizes that this person is incapable of giving or receiving love, and that relationship ends. And they tend to go pillar to post in relationships. Ditto for narcissists. The same problem. But back to Bernie Madoff. When he stole from people, that empathy, that's why he was relieved when the cops finally caught him. He was like, oh, I've been lying, I've been stealing, and now I don't have to do that anymore. It was better for his internal self, his own psyche, to go and face the music.
Right, but why was it better? I think it was because of his home and family life, because it was a relief to be done with the charade of the home and family life. Why isn't it going back and forth? You should be It's featured when you talk.
Did you click on me?
No, right now it's clicked on me to be always featured.
Well, that's click
Now-
off it. Click off you.
Well, I know, but it used to go back and forth depending on when you talked, you know, the person talking.
Click your mouse in the chat thing.
Click the chat.
It's same with lying. It's same with stealing. When you steal, you don't want people to steal from you. When you lie to someone, you don't want people to lie to you. When you're in a relationship and you're not doing what needs to be done, and I talk a little bit about this in the book, just a little bit in the first part. When you're not building and delivering values, you wind up getting dumped over and over again. So you never really settle into a relationship that is truly rewarding. And closeness never develops.
Wait. You said when you don't build values, you end up getting dumped.
Right.
Now, what does that sentence mean? Because you can't conclude anything more from that sentence until you explain that sentence. What does it mean?
Values are whatever the person says. Like when you go into a store and say, I would like to buy a pair of
values in a relationship. You said if you don't build value in a relationship, then you keep getting dumped.
Well, I'm answering your question.
In a store? Okay, go ahead.
You go into a store and say, I would like to buy this can of beer. And they hand you a bottle of whiskey. You go, no, I want this type of beer. And then they bring you rum. No, I want this kind of beer. And then they bring you something else. And you're like, vodka. And you're like, no, I want this beer. I value this beer. Quit bringing me that fucking shit that you're bringing me.
Well, what's an example in the relationship?
Well, hold on a second. I'm leading to it. I'm setting the principle. Your girlfriend or wife, if you listen to her, will let you know through what she says, plus through your observation, you'll start to see what she likes and what she doesn't like. And what I'm talking about is, and this could be psychological, it could be physical, it could be something as simple as she doesn't like 3 sugars in her tea, she likes 2, and it's, and little things she likes in bed or doesn't like, and being faithful and honoring that side of it. These are things that she values. And now what your wife values and what my wife value may be different, and that's perfectly fine. So you need to listen to your customer, and you need to deliver consistently without relying on yesterday's values. You can't, fall back on your laurels. It falls to you to continually deliver those values. And if you don't, she's going to dump you. You will never... unless you're adding value, and same with your boss.
Can we say be who you are and have integrity? That will build value in relationships. If you have integrity and be yourself.
No. You should be yourself, yes.
Okay.
But you also need to put in the work. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm probably a different person when I'm living by myself than when I'm with somebody else.
Yeah.
Because I have to up my game and add something that they like, and I demand the same for me. So, and then your relationship spirals upward rather than spirals downward.
So to add value is to the little things you need more than just integrity. It's the little daily things.
Integrity, which is a beautiful trait, I talk about that in the book, what it is. Honesty, friendship, sex, humor, all of these things are intangible values, and they're fantastic. Banter, I talk about how banter's very
tangible.
Banter's a great value too, because banter is a type of conversation where you trust someone enough to share a half-finished thought with them, and banter and chisel it. You trust their mind with your secrets, with your half-finished thoughts. And when you have a friendship like that, that's a real solid, no, I shouldn't call it a solid value. That's a very precious, intangible value. Tangible values, I mean money. I mean the ability to do something that actually is measurable or quantifiable in some way. He builds this, he fixed the door, he fixed the banister, He spent time with my daughter. He did real things in real time, and he provided and all that stuff. But if you rely in a marriage on strictly on intangible values, you're in deep shit. You need to have a balance of the two, in my view. So that's like when I say you need to be a value producer and you need to add value to have love or to be employed or to have friendship. I think that's a cornerstone. I think it's really something that's basal to our nature. I just see that in people, and this may be just observation talking, but I see this in people that does anybody really want to go to their deathbed or the doctor tells you tomorrow, you're going to die in 6 months.
Okay.
Do you really want to know that you were a prick that sucked the life out of everybody around you? And
right. So can I just say, so people should go to relationships not as a treasure chest to get a bunch of goodies, but as a trade relationship to so when you do the exchange of a relationship, you both have that moment like at a store where you say thank you.
Right.
Rather than because a lot of people go to a relationship as I'm going to get this out for me, my happiness or whatever. You do have an exchange there. Their happiness becomes important.
Right.
It becomes a consideration.
And vice versa. Both of you are thinking the same way.
Your happiness should be considered by them.
Now, here's this. If you're thinking and paying attention to what's happening here, my book talked about the bad morality too, right? While we're talking about love, let's talk about bad morality. Okay, beer time. Beer me.
Yeah, I'm close to the fridge. So go ahead.
Okay. We're told that, oh, by the way, I'm going to kick the church in the teeth a little bit here. Then I'm going to come back and defend the church a little bit.
Okay.
Till death do us part is a mystical concept that has no basis in reality whatsoever. If somebody says, I have this ring on my finger, I've made a vow, if that takes away the urgency within you to create values, just because we're married, we're going to stick together, and they get lazy and stop adding value, then the vow of till death do us part has actually had a deleterious effect on that couple.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why my wife and I have a beautiful mission. It defines our values. It defines how we look at relationships. It defines our roles in the relationship, and it defines how we treat each other and the guidelines and everything else. The non-aggression principles built right into it. And the whole thing is all there. We framed it with an $800 frame. It's on parchment. It's just gorgeous. It's just unbelievable. Someday I'll show you a picture. Because this is the center of our life, not our vows. If either one of us stops living the mission, of course we're going to kick the other person out of our life. Because what's the basis of love? There is no basis for love when there's no values being added. Eventually, if someone's fucking you over, you start to resent them after a while. Now, here's something the church did that was good. They put this mechanism on the people. They put this clamp on people in the name of a vow, and they backed it up with shame, because if you left your wife or she left you, it was a shame. And the whole community shamed you. And what they were trying to do was stabilize the homes, because unstable homes lead to unstable societies.
Now, wait, this is before women's rights.
Right. They were trying to snap the family together so the children would have two parents.
I think that's okay. That's one way to look at it. I think it's also, there's another way to look at it, which is that men want a lot of women, and some of them are rich and powerful. So what we do is we make a rule: one man, one woman. We make a rule. Everybody has to follow it. Behind the scenes, you can do what you like. If you don't get in trouble, maybe you get killed because of it, or
right.
Adultery. But in public, you can't have more than one.
Right.
Because it's unstable to
Right.
have large groups of men who aren't married.
Right. Just look at large swaths of our urban centers that have no stability in their
I
homes.
want to make one more step with that thought.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Some societies did that. Some didn't. The ones that did that, that said one woman, one man, survived and did very, very well. Thank you.
Right.
The ones that said, you can have as many women as you like, or you can have 4 or 5 or 3 or 7. Those societies died out and disappeared, and there's a reason for that. So we should take very, very seriously the idea that a nuclear family is important. Although obviously I'm not a Catholic and I'm not against divorce.
Oh, me neither. Me neither. And, here's a couple of little sidebars. You can divorce and stay close. I think the court system smashes families apart. And I would bring up France. France is a country where everything you talked about is on the front of the French society. When you look at it, you see stable families, mom and dad stay together, especially when there's a little bit of money involved. If you're well-to-do, if you're in the upper middle class and the rich people, there seemed to be this understanding that a man had a mistress, and it was no big deal. It was just the way it was. I mean, this was cultural to them, but on the surface,
look at their society now.
yes.
Proves my point.
Now, this is interesting. Do you think that there's a relationship between that phenomenon that I just described and what's happening to their culture?
It could be a small bit of that, but the problem that I would point to from that is you have some percentage, 1% of men in society who can't get laid because the women are busy with rich guys. So, or 2%. I mean, what percentage of men do you have running around with nothing to do before you start having problems? Because they're young. You get married when you get older. If you're 33, you can marry a 20-year-old. So older men are sucking up the younger women out of the pool all the time. Young men are the unmarried ones. Men up to the age of 25. Now, what do you do when you have a society full of unemployed men 25 and under with no women?
Well, how can we?
They go insane. They go completely insane.
Yeah, you just threw down the MGTOW, Matt.
Well, MGTOW pulls out the map that we've seen in history many times.
But not like this. I've never seen this happen. I think that the mainstream media, the mainstream sociologists are completely missing MGTOW. You and I see it.
Oh, they're not missing MGTOW. They see it like they see Donald Trump, and they have to ignore it and downplay it and lie about it. And you think they miss it. They can't talk about it. It's like objectivism. Can't talk about it. Why do you say they miss it? Go ahead, because
I don't hear a word about it in the mainstream media.
Yeah, what could they say? They could say there's this whole movement against women. I mean, it blows their hippie noodles.
I've said that I've made many videos about this, and what I say is there's a state of flux. We're in the middle of a change. We don't know what to do in this change. The floor is moving underneath our feet, so we haven't quite got. I know what to do about it. I think you probably know what to do about it. But what's the third wave of feminists came along, and they're Marxists, and destabilizing families is crucial to them, and that's why we're seeing this. I think MGTOW was a deliberate, but we also, men, I encourage young men, don't get married. Get married when you're a little older, but now you may find a unicorn that wants to settle down, but still it's risky business because the courts the lawyers are licking their chops every time somebody gets married, wanting.
What if it were a free society? What would we say if the courts weren't involved in marriage, and if it was capitalistic society with what we think of as almost laissez-faire, what if, in our ideal world, what is
Contract law.
Right, so what are we going to say to a kid? Wait before you get married, or what? I would say get married when you fall in love.
I would say get married, well, fall in love, okay. But find a girl who adds value to your life, that you add value to her life. Sure, there has to be an attraction, but you can't just go in on the attraction angle. Attraction is a factor in the equation. It's not the whole equation.
No, I know, but what if we tell them to, and then they produce more kids, and we can save our birth rate a little bit? Because our birth rate's a disaster. We got to get some kids somewhere. Otherwise,
well, the fact that we're overtaxed has everything to do with this.
Do you have kids?
I have 2 children that are grown, and I have grandchildren.
Then you know how happy it is to have you. So tell your children and grandchildren that they will achieve happiness in life when they have children of their own. Make that an important goal for them in their mind.
I do. My kids, my son had 2, my daughter had 1, and they're not having any more. And
oh, God.
The real, no, here's the thing. Martha and I, my first wife, we had 2. And so they've spawned 3 more. So there's 5 that came out of 2.
Yeah, that's a little weak because you should have had 15 or 20 by now. But I've only got one. I've only got one.
My mom and dad had 4 of us. 4.5. 1 was out of wedlock, but anyway, that's another story.
That's the fertility that created America.
Yes, but it's taxation. You are taxed to the point. Well, first of all, the first wave of feminism took women out of the home, and they ostensibly took women's stock and dropped it to 0. They had no use. We had no use for them. We'd come home. You got to watch my video, What Men Really Want to Say to Women. It just tells this story. You come home, it's like there's no supper on the table, house isn't cleaned up. She comes home too tired for sex. What value does her stock have? Yeah,
liberation's great, isn't it? But now there's 2 taxpayers per family instead of 1.
And then the taxes started to go up horrendously. 50 million people on food stamps, unemployment, endless, and so on. And all the other things, which we shall not get into.
No, Rome failed with a circus allowance and free grain and daily bread rations, and they actually gave tickets to the circus, the Colosseum, for the poor people who couldn't afford it.
Right.
So that's what was.
Yeah, when the altruism of the Catholic Church insipidly seeped into the psyche of the Roman Empire, it died within a century.
Well, the politicians had to give stuff away to the people to make them happy, and the politicians that gave the most away got the most support.
Right. I made a quote in my book, and I forget who it was from, about once the government realizes it can buy votes, it's basically all over.
Yeah, and the only cure for that is to make it in the Constitution, eliminate all ways for the government to buy votes, which is going to be a separation of economics and state in the same way and for the same reasons as the separation of church and state, in the words of Ayn Rand. So we're going to, the way that we have this freedom of religion, we're going to have freedom of economics too. And you won't be able to violate people's rights, no fraud, no putting a smokestack on, your property that your neighbor is going to die from. There'd be laws, and there'd be courts, and you could address physical harm and objective harm. That's it. The government can't do anything else. It can't build roads. It can't have post offices. Nothing that affects the economy. Then
I think that the government should create, the federal government, I have no problem with a network of what they call in England the King's Highways and Byways. There's your interstates.
No. We would have flying cars by now.
We had a conservative premier in Ontario. He built this beautiful highway called the 407 through
Oh,
Toronto.
Todd, are you one of those statists? I'm gonna have to show you the meme every time.
Hold on a second. Let me finish what I'm saying.
Highways, and they cradle their highways, and they love their highways.
No. Listen to me.
They don't. We don't need
Let
highways.
me finish what I'm saying.
Oh well, I'm upset already because I hate highways. Go ahead.
He built a beautiful highway through Toronto,
Beautiful.
called it the 407, and then he promptly sold it.
Okay. So
And he gave it to private hands.
all right.
It's the most beautiful highway in the world. It's private, but the government built it and then promptly sold it.
Okay.
And they take their pound of flesh, but
They probably sold it to save their ass and paid 50%.
no. Mike Harris was a conservative, and he built the highway to sell it. All the liberals lost their shit over that.
Well, I don't think that the government should build anything because when they do, they make the wrong decision. I mean,
No, but you know what the problem was? We desperately needed the 407, and all kinds of expropriation.
okay, then a company would have built it. Look,
No expropriation of land and everything. It was like it had to be built, and then they sold it.
well, then it would be built up on pillars. Why do you have to expropriate land then? Build it up.
You want a highway over your fucking house?
Well, then you would have to get air rights. That'd be a lot cheaper than telling people they have to move, which the government did.
I don't see a problem. Like, you know what? There are certain things that governments can do. For example, here's something that governments I think should do.
Oh
If
wait,
you-
I just want to, before we go forward, the government was busy building dozens of canals all over the nation when railroads became a huge thing. So I just don't trust the government to know when to build something, where, and with what technology. But go ahead.
Well, they're always on the following edge. That's inherent. For example, let's say Lowe's and Home Depot and I don't know, Home Hardware. I don't know the big names, whatever. All the big boys go golfing, and they fix the prices on hammers and screwdrivers and nails and wood and then they call in the wood producers, E.B. Eddy and Abitibi and all the big boys, and they call them in and they go golfing, and all the prices are fixed, and it's all done on a wink and a nod. There are laws against that.
There shouldn't be. Should not be.
See, that's where you and I disagree.
Let's use an example.
That's stealing.
Let's use an example and look at it. No, it's not stealing. Let's look at an example. Let's not keep these things floating in our head. Let's talk about real things here. Hammers, $9 a piece now. There are going to be little teeny hardware stores cropping up all across America to compete with these hardware stores that are now charging $9 a hammer. They're going to have $2 hammers, $4 hammers, and $7 hammers.
No, the thing is, the big boys, that's not how they operate. What
So
they do is they abuse their dominant position.
How?
They drop prices down so low that all the ma and pas go out of the marketplace,
Why do we need anybody else in business?
and then they crank up the prices and screw everybody.
Oh no, then people start opening businesses. So it doesn't last more than a few days. And why would they do that? Why would they want the chaos? Standard Oil didn't do it. They produced 97% of the oil in the country, and prices fell and fell and fell and fell and fell.
Look at the price. Well, that's not true. They didn't own that much of the oil.
No, I think their production capacity at one point was really, really high.
Well, in the first few years, yes. But
Pardon me, their refinement.
There was a time when the phone companies had to be broken up.
No, they didn't have to be. No, I don't buy any of the antitrust. It's all
Reagan said we need more than one phone company, and when he broke it up and created 6 or 10, whatever he did, what he did was he unleashed innovation and development, and prices went down.
Yeah, obviously. That's what happens when you get the government out. The government misallocates resources for...
But don't forget, AT&T was born with an unholy alliance from the government.
What was?
AT&T. They were given advantages by the government. In other words, the government created the problem.
Right.
And then years later, Reagan said, we have to stop this madness. there can't just be one phone company.
Well, here's how ridiculous these. You say this problem with charging money, these hardware stores. Here's how ridiculous the law is. You can actually be prosecuted for charging the same as the other people in your industry. You can also be prosecuted for charging more than the other people in your industry because you're price gouging. You can also be prosecuted for charging less because you're doing unfair competition.
Supply and demand works perfectly.
It's a total witch hunt.
No, insurance companies and banks in Canada especially are so regulated that they don't exist. They ostensibly don't exist. What they are is a branch of the government.
Yeah.
And you need a microscope, an electron microscope, to see the difference between the Bank of Nova Scotia and the Toronto Dominion Bank. They have a different sign, and that's where all changes, then that's the only difference. Different colors, one red, one green.
Quick question. How many banks, and I can hear you keep talking, but how many banks are there in Canada? Do you know?
There are 10, but there are only 5 that you see on the street. The other 5 are mercantile banks. They don't do business like the National Bank of Canada. You never, like maybe there's 1 branch in Northern Ontario, 2 in Toronto. They're more of a mercantile bank. There are other banks that do business only on certain levels, and you don't even know their name, but they have a charter. The big boys, but the point I'm making is they're so regulated that they ostensibly are not a business. Ditto for insurance companies. There's really only about 8 insurance companies, but they show up in the marketplace as 170. But if you tear if you peel back the top layer of lies and deception, you start to see that, there's only a small handful of them, and they all go golfing together, and they fix prices.
Now, what are the 5 big ones, or what are 3 of the 5 big ones? Are there some?
No, you got the Bank of Montreal, which BOM.
Okay.
You got the Bank of Nova Scotia, the Toronto Dominion Bank.
Toronto Dominion.
The TD.
TD. Now, how many of our viewers are going to know that Toronto Dominion is a Canadian bank?
You should know. TD. See, what we did in Canada when we went global to stabilize our banking system to get bigger, we changed our names. Like the Bank of Nova Scotia changed its name to Scotiabank. The Toronto Dominion changed its name to TD.
Right.
Bank of Montreal changed its names to BMO.
Right, because that doesn't make sense abroad. So
the Royal Bank of Canada changed its name to just Royal Bank.
Well, do you see the point that I'm driving at? America's got something wrong in its banking system. It's so strangled it can't create competitive banks. And banks from socialist basket case Canada are coming down here and competing with our banks because they're more stable and they're more profitable. We have too many regulations. We have too much going on. This is one, I think this is from Allison from B&T Financial.
When it comes to this sort of thing, I think Aaron Clary should come on the show and because I'm a little boat in deep water, but I do know
we should
regulated.
We should get somebody soon. What are we going to do? Yeah,
Redonkulous wants on the show, and I can get Bernie Chapin on the show too. They both expressed an interest. I think I could get Aaron on the show. I think I could get Davis Arini. And, you have some wonderful guests that come onto this show regularly that could take over, 2 6 or 7 minute segments and kind of lead the dance twice during the hour and just kind of integrate themselves into our show where you and I talk to them. And there was one fellow from Australia a couple weeks ago. He sounded like the kind of guy I could enjoy a conversation with.
Now, he's not the one you accused of being a Mexican at first, huh?
No, that fucker was a Mexican. Or in the Colombia? I got a short fuse for people like that.
I used to, but I spent years doing that, and I made videos about it, and I wouldn't talk to people after I did a video and stuff, and I made videos making fun of them. But now I really enjoy coming into these Google Hangouts and playing with them, and because, you know, I'm so far above them, they don't understand anything. You know,
That drunken Irishman that was in the room. I was trying to bring a little bit of order, not a lot of order, just a little bit, so it wasn't just people yelling.
No, when you have a drunken Irishman, you just try to have fun while he has fun. You can't control a drunken Irishman.
Yeah,
My name's Cropper. My name's Cropper. I'm probably an Irishman. So
where is everybody tonight?
I know. I don't know.
Did you send out your invites or what?
Ladies and gentlemen, you can join by clicking in various places. I don't know. Maybe people got sick of the troll who was messing everything up. I don't know. We have 8 people watching now, but that's all right. We have a radio show early, so I feel bad when the room gets huge and I've got to go to bed and the room's huge, and when I leave the room it goes to chaos. And you know,
right.
Hero does that. He leaves a room with 10 people in it, and it goes on for 8 hours. So, but I guess if you've ever been in Piero's room, you know it's not really very.
No, I don't go into rooms like this.
It's ridiculous.
As far as our show goes, I'm a great believer in going from the general to the specific. And as my book evolves and more manuscripts get produced in the book, because I look at this as a life's work. Long after I'm gone, I want people to be reading this. What I do is I go from the general to the specific, and I give examples along the way, and it becomes more concrete as things go on.
Okay, now here's an example.
Same with our show. Our show's going to do the same thing. People are going to...
We should don't go to the next thing. Talk about that example real quick, because I want to put it in there. You and I should discuss some serious sentences from Aristotle, and we could do a show. Just like 2 or 3 key sentences from the Ethics would be a whole show. 2 or 3 sentences from Analytica Posteriori, a whole show. De Spirit. So Aristotle is probably something that our viewers would want to know more about and want to hear what we say about him. You know. So anyways, for some reason, what you said made me think of that example of what we should put in our show in that way. But go ahead.
Right. But the way I look at our show is if people listen for a long time and come back for many, many shows, they will begin to see things forming and taking better shape. It's hard really to start getting into the deep, dark corners of, say, for example, the mechanics of thinking without first giving some, like, I'm more of a pontificator than you are. I'll talk about things in a general way.
Well, think about your audience. Who's listening to you? Right now, we only have very smart people listening. So you can skip over basic, small things. Who's your audience? So when I speak to objectivists, as my core audience, it's different than when I speak to anarchists, because I did a video called Anarchy is Stupid, and that was
right.
Anarchists.
I would like to develop an audience of people, and I would like our thinkers, our super thinkers that love us, I'd like them to reach out to people that they love or they know or they work with and bring them in and say, these people are telling us stuff that are practical ideas that help your life. Your love life, your work life.
We haven't yet, though. Tomorrow's our second show. We haven't yet. We've got to put some meat on the table and prove ourselves before they can say that. So
I think we did put some good stuff on the table last week, but the marketing is part of it. And I'm just saying, I would like our audience to be Joe Lunchbucket, Sally Housecoat, but the people that know this stuff, they love hearing it. They're going to learn ways. If you're a super thinker and you know all about epistemology and you've read Aristotle and Hegel and all that stuff and you're a super thinker, that's fantastic. What I think I bring to the table through radio, 37 years in broadcasting, plus writing and everything else, my 500 videos, I think I've acquired some skills to communicate and to tell the story. And I think what you bring is history and some raw horsepower when it comes to talking about the titans, be it Churchill in recent years, going back to way back to Aristotle and some philosophers I've never even heard of. You talk about how history affected certain civilizations. And those stories combined, I think, give people, even the super thinkers, the tools they need to bring this to work, to bring it to the carpool and the water cooler and the Thanksgiving table. When somebody says something stupid, they can stand up and instead of boring them with stuff that you and I would get, but nobody else would get, they may get something from me that's very pedestrian, very low level, and worded like, you know how Trump talks to people like they're in grade 4? He's not really there, but he sees the need to make things pedestrian, to get through to people. And like my book says more than once, we hope that what we're writing in our books gives you a curiosity and a thirst to reach out to higher levels, to read Rand's books, to come to our show more often, and you'll start to see things layer up and get more complex. Tomorrow I have a section on integrated thinking, which is just a little bit of epistemological training.
Now, I'm not sure exactly where you go with this about the more shows they watch, the more they learn or something. Is this an education for people who don't know objectivism yet?
Oh, yes, definitely. I think a lot of people are going to come in here and we're going to tell them in our marketing, you know, you wonder why your marriage is unhappy. You wonder why society's falling apart. You wonder why your kids are in the fucking basement.
Now, wait.
The economy's falling apart.
Okay,
There's a philosophical reason for that.
My audience doesn't need to tune in then because they know all that.
No, but they may learn. They may learn how to communicate these ideas better.
Got to go on a high level or I don't know. Okay.
I think you do more of that than I do. But if we start talking over people's heads.
No. This is a conundrum for me. Do I talk to people? Do I talk to the top 1%?
No.
That's what my whole channel is.
And the problem with the 1% is they're incapable of bringing it down and talking to the average person.
No, I mean, what? Am I incapable of talking to the average person? Give me a break. But so my audience is high powered. I mean, people who watch Mr. Cropper aren't learning slowly about objectivism and it's at the edge of their mind. They are people, I don't know, people have watched me for a long time and can stand to watch. They couldn't stand to watch my videos if objectivism wasn't, if the essence of objectivism wasn't in their spirit. There's a floating abstraction. So
no, there's nothing wrong with that.
Who's our audience? We've got to choose, because if I come on and start doing this stuff about Aristotle and you say, no, we're trying to tell people how to have a happy life and a marriage. Then,
I don't see a problem with either one of those.
All right, good.
I think that they can be married. I think our show has to have a little bit of country, a little bit of rock and roll. You know, like we got to be like Donnie and Marie.
Well, but who's the host of this show? Now, look, they can go.
We both do. Like I do the MC shit, but basically we have equal time.
Okay, they can go anywhere and get people to say, if you're honest with your wife and you help with the housework, you'll be happier. They can go anywhere and get that. But they can only go to our channel and get us to start at the beginning with Aristotle's ethics as the base, and then at the end tell you the same thing all these other nutcases are telling you, but they don't justify it.
Right.
That's what I think our thing is, and we don't necessarily have to talk to the upper class. We can produce them. So some of our viewers could be people who are not particularly adept at philosophy but are interested in it, and we can be, as I have been for years now, some sort of a positive influence on that, which is what you're saying. Teach
Yes,
people.
and I also said last week that in my monologue, I talked about how the love of wisdom, the love part, is a passionate love, and we want to live it. And tonight I watched The Matrix again for the thousandth time. Our internet died here for like 3 hours, and I said, let's pop in The Matrix. So, because when we love something, we don't mind hearing it again. We don't mind hearing it spoken in a different way. Maybe I'll bring out something to them that helps them communicate it better, which is my strength. Perhaps you will bring in you'll shift the camera around. You'll say, what Todd's saying can be expressed in another way from this historical example, or from this quote from Nietzsche, or this quote from Aristotle, or here's something from Kant that expresses the opposite, and here's why he was full of shit on this issue, and why he created this problem when he started to teach this sort of stuff, and it led to, John Dewey and the degradation of our education system. Like, you can tie it all together.
No, well, you're right. I mean, I think we should do that. I think a few cogent sentences from this or that philosopher would make good conversation, and that we would have in my mind, there are two parts of our audience. Now, one thing that I did learn from Lisa Van Dam, Leonard Peikoff, etc., is choose your audience, choose your subject, choose your theme, or else you're not going to know what you're saying. And our audience has to be, in my mind, pretty high-powered people. And if it's Sally, Joe, and John Doe, they have to be working class people who have not been fooled by philosophy. They've not gone to college. Or they went to college and they didn't like it. They thought everyone there was idiots. That's the type of person that's our audience.
I believe that a lot of people these days in our politics with Trump and what's going on in Europe backs me up on this. I believe a lot of people are very distressed right now. Look at how many divorces there are. Look at how much drug use there is. Look how many kids are living in the basement. Look at how many people 50 and over are going home to live with their parents who are in their 70s and 80s. It is rampant.
Okay, look, I mean, I agree. All that's very bad. I am slightly less worried about that. That I want to draw a parallel to the 1930s, like I do when this stuff comes up. That we have a lot less to worry about in this country. Right now, we're complaining about weak job market. It's actually the strongest of any country in the world. We have problems with rising prices. Are you kidding me? Everybody else has much worse problems with that.
Fire. Let me finish what I was saying.
So we got problems.
People are, and we are on the cusp of a crash. We do have a very high labor force, a very low labor force participation rate. Printing money is a really bad idea. There are people that are distressed. People are living at home. People are coming out of colleges with crushing student debt. China is building in the South China Sea. There are all kinds of problems. And what we need to say to people is, and I talked about this tomorrow in the show a little bit, when someone says to you, you have cancer, your doctor says you have cancer, you can see, it's what he should be saying to you, like, cancer is just an outcropping of what caused it. The world has a philosophy problem. That's its problem.
Right.
Printing money, divorce, kids living in the basement, student debt.
Okay. Well,
is all traced back, and that's where people come to us and say, okay, Smarty, you're telling me that philosophy is my problem, and I'm saying, yep.
To return to my point, yeah, but Europe is going to have a huge fuck-off war with millions of deaths.
Right.
So it's kind of like you're talking about how do we solve the economic problems in America, in Depression America. True. But Depression America is not what we remember.
The question
we remember
that you asked me The question you asked me, what I bounced off of,
Okay.
was you said to me,
It's fair to remind me because I'm drinking and you're drinking less, but go ahead.
I don't know, man. The question that you asked me was, let's talk about our audience, and I said this is where I would start.
Oh, okay.
That instead of talking to a microscopic sliver of the population like you and me that have spent 30 years studying this shit, now we're capable of turning to the people and saying, you don't have a money printing problem. Those kids living in your basement, that's not the problem. China building, military bases in the South China Sea, or Muslims invading Europe, none of this is the problem. You have a philosophy problem. And until you solve your fucking philosophy problem, it's only gonna get worse. Because, folks, we have to discuss altruism. We have to discuss human sacrifice. We have to talk about the basis of logic, reason, and everything, or we'll never fix the divorce rate. There's no hope in it.
All right, let me welcome Edward LaCour to the thing. Todd, if you don't know Edward, he's a objectivist. Edward, do you want to say some words about that? And then do you want to say what you think a radio show / podcast audience should be for an objectivist? You've watched enough of my videos since Stuart introduced you to me. Who do you think I should go after as an audience? Should I go after like the small top cream of the crop objectivists, or a broader audience like a sort of Jerry Springer shotgun and get as many people and try to get a thought into their head?
That's not fair.
No, or something in between. I'm naming like the top and then the very low.
We're not Jerry Springer.
No, I'm saying that's the top is the sliver thing, and the low would be to try to hit 80% of the audience with.
Oh, by the way, turn his mic on.
And no, I think he's on. He's probably.
Yes, I'm on. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead and speak.
Okay. Well, I would want to go for a mass audience because our ideas are so completely different and fresh from anything that most people have heard. I mean, you've got to remember, most of the general, let's just say a general audience of late teens and early 20s, most of them have only ever really heard like Jon Stewart on The Daily Show. That's the closest thing to philosophy that they've ever got, something like that. Now, that's the norm. That's reinforced by musicians. That's reinforced by every source.
Let me stop you for a second. So, would you propose then an objectivist talk show on TV where we have socialists, a panel of socialists and capitalists, 3 of each, and they end up throwing chairs, but the capitalists don't throw the chairs. It's the socialists who throw chairs. What if? Is that what you?
Well, I mean, if you can actually expose the moral degradations of the left, I mean, that would be good. If you can basically not manipulate events, but basically get people to see that when you push socialists, you see their fascism, you see their desperation, you see their arrogance, you see their megalomania. It's ultimately about power and control with them, and the compassion and the altruism is largely a front. The claims of altruism, not the underlying philosophy.
Yeah.
But you need to find different angles and different mediums in which to hit people. Everything from lyrics in songs to blockbuster movies about pirates, whatever it might be. But you need to basically hit people from multiple angles, because the left in particular live in the biggest echo chamber in the West. As I say, that they're getting hit by the media, they're getting hit by Hollywood, they're getting hit by musicians and artists and popular entertainers and comedians. Everybody is basically part of this problem.
All right, let me throw your thought over to Todd. Todd, what do you think about going after a mass audience, almost like objectivists running a Jerry Springer show? So at the end of the day, every punchline was something like, "Who's John Galt?" And we would just laugh about it. Every time we said, "Who is John Galt?" we would just fall on the floor and laugh.
Well, I can't tell you how much I agree with him. This is a culture war. And I worked in popular radio as a disc jockey for my whole life. I worked in newspaper. I mean, totally. And I totally understand what he's saying, and I totally agree with him. But guys like you and me, Brandon, can build a bridge in a world that desperately needs one. We teach the teachers. We talk to people about what he just said. He's bang on the money. And we need to tell people, write songs, do stand up. Create a podcast that is hilarious. Make a sitcom. Write books to children. Get out there, change the culture. What we're going to do, Brandon, is we're going to give you the sound philosophical basis on which to base this culture on.
No, Ayn Rand did that. We're just going to
She
talk.
failed totally. Sorry. Ayn Rand fucked up, failed, and she fell flat in her face. And so did Peikoff.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we now have a departure between Mr. Reinhardt and I. It's
No.
quite sharp.
Who wants to sit down and read
Say that
1,100 pages? Does Joe Lunchbucket want to read Atlas Shrugged? I read it 5 times for them, and basically, and all of her other books and other philosophers, and distilled it into a book, this thick, so Joe Lunchbucket can throw it in his lunch pail, take it to work, and learn something.
All right, let me let Ed throw two or three sentences in there.
Let me explain where Ayn Rand went wrong, and she could have quite easily have gone right. What was the first job she ever got when she came to America?
Writing movie scripts?
No, before that. She got a job as an extra on The King of Kings with Cecil B. DeMille.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
She basically, the first thing she ever did when she came to America, she became part of Hollywood, albeit in a peripheral sense. What she should have done, she should have become an actress or a screenwriter or a director. She should have basically gone at this from a Hollywood angle. She should have stayed in there like a spider at the center of its web, radiating out. She should have been the center of a countercultural movement in Hollywood. And after all, at the time she arrived, you had Gary Cooper and people like that who were absolutely anti-communist. This is why he was in Fountainhead. So she should have built up a counter-Hollywood movement. Instead, she chose to be a novelist, which was a really good move at the time, but in retrospect, people still watch old Hollywood movies. People, by and large, don't read old books. I mean, they do if they're cultured, but the mass market don't. If you can make a really good, successful film, look at Hollywood today. Hollywood is constantly remaking movies. If she'd made a load of movies, if she'd been a film director, they'd be remaking her movies all the time. Or at least you could argue, you could go to a bunch of producers and say, look, producers, we know you're scared of making anything new, so here's a load of established, famous films with famous brand names, and you can use that instead.
So you fault her for a lack of vision, and that's, I mean...
It's the format. She used the wrong format. Novels are really good, but a novelization of a movie would have been better if she'd started with a movie that then got a novelization. Then you'd have audio-visual, you'd have a Hollywood establishment and culture to build upon, whereas novels, it's just not... I mean, the novel is effectively dead as far as pop culture is concerned.
I was going to say earlier, I like what you say, I like your point, because she was Jewish, and everybody in Hollywood is Jewish, and she would have had that in, and I wonder if Mr. DeMille, Cecil B. DeMille, whatever it was, DeMille?
Yes.
Yeah.
Was he Jewish?
Cecil B. DeMille.
Was he Jewish?
They were all Jews. That's not my pitch.
Jews.
No, seriously, Edward made a beautiful point, and he's right. But she's dead now. We can't put the we don't have a time machine. But here, Brandon and I have a radio show every Sunday morning now. We just started it, and my background is broadcasting. YouTube is hot right now, so what we're going to try and do is spread the word that Edward just gave. Edward is bang on the money. If we don't go after the culture, we're going to lose everything. People need to be encouraged to write the songs and make the videos and the sitcoms, and we need to set up like a Netflix system where people can subscribe and we can fund top shelf entertainment and have bands like Rush that espouse these basic concepts in the lyrics. And this is how you get through to culture.
Yeah, I mean, let me give you an example of something that came close. I'm a gamer. I do game reviews. I do voiceover work for the games industry, and when you basically, the closest we ever came to something like this was the BioShock games. We came very close. The BioShock games were incredible. They were vivid. They were imaginative. They were very, very clever. And of course, BioShock 1 was basically analogous for Atlas Shrugged. You had this. You had a Galt's Gulch. That was called Rapture. That was underwater city, as in like Atlantis. You had a John Galt himself kind of character. Only the whole point is that it all went wrong and it became dystopian, and it's partly because they needed an action game. They needed something for you to shoot at, so they had all these terrible things go wrong. But the problem with the game is that they got one or two crucial aspects of the philosophy wrong. If they got it right, you could have seen a completely different kind of game where you could still have had villains of some sort, but the heroes would have been representative of the philosophy, rather than the hero being a blank slate, where you basically have the villains being essentially objectivists gone wrong. Essentially,
yes.
It didn't
And so enter Todd and Brandon, who are trying to build a bridge from where we are today in our society to where people would have the philosophy right.
Yes, but they were ducks close. That's the point. The game was really stylish and vivid and very, very, very popular. And if we took that style but changed the philosophy slightly, we would have something along those lines. I mean, it's a good blueprint to follow, at least in terms of the style and sort of the popular outreach. It's the closest thing to mass popularization of objectivism there's ever been.
Yeah, Bioshock. It was good. It was good. I mean, I never played it. I don't know anything about it. I heard great things from Stuart, who Edward and I both know. Edward, Todd and I are getting to know each other quite well, and he knows my videos, and I've watched him and listened to both of his books. Do you want to say a few words about your history with objectivism or something? Just introduce yourself to him. And
Oh, well, for the past 20 years, I've been a philosopher. I'm an autodidactic polymath. I've been to college, been to university. I did a degree in psychology. It was supposed to be sociology, but they cancelled the course at the last minute, which turned out to be a good thing because the main lecturer was a neo-Marxist. So we would have basically spent the entire time arguing with each other. As it was, he actually did do a sociology minor on the course, and so yeah, he and I did end up with a lot of fights. But
I want to interrupt for 1 second. I took Sociology 101 because I had to, because blah blah blah, and the professor ended up saying things to me like, "Brandon, you're slowing us down again."
Yes, I'd hijack that. If you talk to anybody on the course that I was on, they would say that, yeah, I would basically hijack every lecture. I would just completely take it over. People basically said to me after I left the course, people said to me that they missed me. They'd turn up for a lecture and it just wasn't the same because I wasn't there, just completely hijacking it. And at one point, the neo-Marxist professor took me into his office and gave me a right talking to. Just kept pointing his finger at me and going, "You are incredibly arrogant, unbelievably arrogant." And I just said, "You haven't debunked a single thing I have ever said. What is the problem here?"
Oh, because you've read The Fountainhead, so.
No, I hadn't studied objectivism yet. That was that was me before objectivism. So you can imagine what I'm like now. But what I did was, I mean, I've always had a sort of two sides. I've always had an artistic side and an intellectual side.
I want to pop one point in there. I did call one of my teachers a Nazi, and I got sent to the principal's office once, 2 or 3 years before I read anything by Ayn Rand. So it's not true that you have to have read Ayn Rand to believe in egoism and so on.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean,
it's funny you say that, because I have an artistic intellectual background, never went to school for it, but about 30 years ago I started studying philosophy, but also a lot of great science of achievement stuff, some, the scientific end of it. I began to look into sociology, anthropology, and I've been a news junkie since I've been about 12 years old. Worked in broadcasting, sign shops. I'm a graphic designer. I do web stuff. So I have all of this sort of background similar to you, but I think what I bring to the table is not only a working knowledge of all these things, but very broad, but a communication background from the real world. So this is something that I bring to the table. And then what Mr. Cropper brings to the table is an immense knowledge of history on top of that. So the nexus between us is objectivism, but he has a different background than I do. And I think that's why our show is going to be interesting. And we've been working on the idea of who our audience is going to be. And I think that we need to reach out to real people, build a bridge, and start to build enough of an audience that they can reach out then to go into the public through culture, writing songs, making games, making sitcoms on YouTube and stuff that reach out to everyday people.
You're jumping a little ahead. How do we get to these people, and why do we just dismiss the 3,000 subscribers, 2,700 now?
I think they will love our show. I think they will love it.
All right, but we can't bore them.
They won't be bored.
And if we're going after the larger audience, I probably shouldn't start with Aristotle, or I can, but we have to have socialists on, and we have to argue with them and insult them.
No.
All right, where's our Jerry Springer angle so we can get?
No, I don't want the Jerry Springer angle. I think what we do by the very nature of our discussion, we're kicking the world, socialists, and the current order of things in the balls every time we open our mouth.
Well,
the conflict isn't between you and me. The conflict is between you and me and this fucked up world that is mired in Platonistic altruism and their general fucked upness. And as they go through our shows, we're going to be rubbing their rhubarb, and people are going to be listening to us because they want their life, their family, their work life, their country, and their world to straighten the fuck up.
No. They're going to listen to us because we're interesting.
Well, that's a given. That's good radio. But what draws them to the show is they are in distress, and I think I really need to make this point.
What draws them to the show is that we're interesting.
No, we are interesting, and we are going to do good radio. That's beside the point. That's a given. Let's pretend we've already got that out of the way. We're going to do good radio. We're interesting people. We're going to be funny and everything else. But at the core of it, what drives people to our show, what makes us different, is they're in distress. They're in distress because their kids are in the basement. They're in debt. Their world's fucked up. The world's on fire, for fuck's sakes.
So this is our audience then.
Real people want real help.
Can you hear me?
Oh, his fucking microphone is all fucked up.
There we go. It's mute.
Well, for me, what I keep thinking is it's about format. I mean, I did 7 years of art college, and I did photography, I did graphic design, I did computer animation, I did filmmaking, I did everything for years and years and years. But there was always something lacking, and the sort of intellectual element was never there for me. But the thing is, you need to grab people on a really popular level. You need to think in terms of animation. You need to think in terms of visuals. You need to think in terms of snappy YouTube content. And if you look at the stuff that's really, really successful right now, the stuff that's really picking up is stuff like Sargon of Akkad. And what he does is he goes after specific targets with a really, 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 really deadly intellectual and verbal style. And he goes after popular mass market targets. So he goes after celebrities, but he also goes after news items, and he keeps it relevant and he keeps it current. And he has he has This Week in Stupid. Catchy title, catchy format, and he basically just goes after the real scum of the earth. So I was thinking something more like a news show, like call it something like Atlas News, where you basically say, these are the current affairs, this is what's going on in the world, this is how we understand these events. So keep it current, keep it very, very, very contemporary.
I want to listen to you. I mean, what's in it for them?
That's what we're about. That's what we're discussing.
Okay,
Yeah,
so them. Not tell me what it's going to be.
I'd like to get back to what Edward said. He said something interesting about formats. So what we do, Edward, is we open the show by basically saying the show is driven by philosophy and ideas, but also the news events of the day and questions from and comments and requests from the listeners themselves. So what we basically do is we divide the clock up in such a way that Brandon has 5 minutes to just monologue. I have 5 minutes to just monologue. And in between, we put 6 different quick, between 6 and 9 minutes, where we talk about a specific thing. So Brandon may pick a topic of altruism. Okay, so he'll lead the dance on that. We'll banter back and forth, and then we'll move on to something else. And we just keep bringing on. It's fast-paced, lots of ideas, and news of the day, of course. Questions.
Isn't that crow busting? On the other hand, I mean, 6 is crow busting for almost anyone, though. You know what I mean?
No, I don't, because I only heard and understood one word you said.
I said crow busting. Too much info to hold in mind. Crow busting.
Right. You can't break the crow epistemology. You have
Right. You said too many. You said like 6 things. That's way too much.
concretize things before you move on.
And what we do over
also,
time
this is very important.
I know what you would do.
have
Yeah.
Liren, behave yourself.
The average
Sorry,
person doesn't
sorry.
want to sit through an hour of epistemological undertakings. It's going to be a mixture of the two. And I know you're mixed up in this, Mon, that you want to have epistemology and you take everything apart. Epistemology is going to be a huge part. Like tomorrow I'm talking about epistemology a little bit, but over the course of many shows, people will learn how to think. But we're not going to sit there and go, and now an hour of epistemology. No one would listen.
I
No.
disagree.
What
Do you
if-
know who Mike Menzer, for example?
Okay, well, what if we do an hour on Aristotle's a priori, what is analytica posteriori?
You know what I think?
Did 1 hour show on that. High-powered, intelligent people would get a lot out of it, and medium-powered people would get something out of it and feel like they came away with some sort of grasp of Aristotle's idea. And it would be nothing but a show on epistemology. So what we would do is we would concretize why Aristotle's epistemology says that quantum mechanics is nonsense. Everyone knows about quantum mechanics.
Okay,
Why does Aristotle's thesis say we can't have dark matter and it doesn't exist? Why? Dark matter? Isn't that the thing that they're all saying they're going to discover tomorrow, right? They're not going to discover it, says Aristotle, and why?
First thing, you have to be a physicist. Also, you people have to be physicists. The people listening to you have to be physicists for that. But I mean, you know how I got into objectivism?
I'm not a physicist, and I can talk on that, and that's interesting. Do I know how you got into objectivism? You better be quick, because I don't know if
Well, the original comment was based on what Edward said. I was having a discussion about formatics, and it's absolutely crucial. I think forward motion, this is 37 years of radio talking. Forward motion has to be part of it. People have, especially in this world, have short attention spans. And we're not just doing what. Let me finish what I'm saying.
Look, I'm not coming to this as anybody but Mr. Cropper. Now, if someone has a short attention span, they're going to have a rough time on my 8-hour video series. So I can do a 1-hour show, but I don't know. I've spoken only to a very thin upper crust of people up to this time. So if I'm going to popularize it, it's going to take an effort in my subconscious to say, how can I talk down and to a... Now, I'm pretty racy at times, but my points are all pretty highfalutin.
I thought you did awesome last week. I thought you did awesome.
Oh, on the show?
Yeah, you did. You did awesome. You took items from, some of it was from what's happening in the news, some of it was based on principles, some was based on epistemology, some was metaphysics, and you wove it in nicely. And I thought when we moved right through our 6 topics, you did your monologue, I did mine, and the show flowed.
What if we're thinking about this top 1% of objectivists is actually more like 5 or 7% of the population, which would be a huge number. That would be 30 or 40 million potential people in America to listen to us.
Well, you have a show every week right here, and where are they?
Well, we just started last week, but I mean, I
mean tonight. Like here it is. It's midnight, and a lot of objectivists are sitting at home, not watching us. Where are they?
Well, it's difficult to reach people. I mean, I'm not that familiar with the Google Hangouts. I'm not that familiar with Google Circles, Google Plus, or Facebook. I have to basically I have to basically just happen to have kept my Google Plus page open so that I got the alert, but only because I was regularly checking it. We need some way of being able to alert people on their phones, alert people in social media. They need to hear the ding that alerts them that there's something going. Or we need to make it so that
it's what most people get here by Facebook. So
yeah.
I got them. But do you guys know who is Mike Menzel? No?
Never heard of him.
Mike Menzel was a famous fitness trainer. Fitness trainer and exercise guy.
Liran, I heard you're on Brooks' show harassing him in the comments. What was that?
Harassing him on the comments. He says he wants people to disagree with him.
He's doing his
And,
show.
it's like, okay. So it's
he's
like either he
doing
says it
his
or he doesn't want it, but...
Doing the show, and you said he was doing his show, and he said, I'm distracted because there's this guy.
Yeah, you're hysterical. And I said, yeah, you're hysterical. We're Israelis.
I want the viewers to know.
Israelis are hysterical people.
I just want the viewers to know that Joran Brooks said, one of my former countrymen is harassing me in the comments. Liran, why won't you give me a break just for once?
Because he's speaking like, oh, I'm an American, and all the rest of the time he speaks, how is he an Israeli, and all that stuff. So
you're such a deed. You're such a deed too. Why won't you give him a break?
I don't remember it because he's like, it's kind of personal because I'm also Israeli. So. It's like, oh, I'm Israeli, and then he's like, I'm American. I'm like, no, come on.
Let us get back to the subject, because no fitness trainers. Somebody returned to...
No, wait.
Okay, I just want to make a few more points. I wanted to talk about personalities.
I'm not getting to my point.
Hey, don't mess around. Let us have a substantive conversation without D2 interrupting.
Hi, Daniel.
I was getting to my point. You speak of attention span. If it had more than 1 minute to hear me out, you'd realize what I'm getting to.
The only thing you're trying to do is destroy some integration we're trying to make.
I'm not trying to destroy an integration. I'm trying
The topic
to give
was the topic, Mon, was formatting, and I was talking about the format. Here it is, right here. There's the show log for tomorrow, where I talk, where Mr. Cropper talks, and what we're talking about, and forward motion. And we're not just doing one show, we're doing 52 shows a year. So things get fleshed out, epistemology comes out, and we teach people. I mean,
look, I was going to get to this with Mike Menzel. I became an objectivist because I saw Mike Menzel explain exercise in a way I would never, ever think of, but I could understand.
Right.
He was an objectivist. Huh?
So listen, I'm fat. Whatever.
Look, I wanted to understand something. I wanted to understand something, and someone was able to explain it, and the only reason he was able to explain it is because of objectivism.
Okay, thank you. There's an objectivist body trainer. All right.
All right. Now you can see how...
Okay, how do we spread objectivism, and who is the audience for an objectivist?
Apply it on concrete problems, and the people who will join are people who realize that objectivism has actual power to explain intellectual things intellectually. That's how I joined.
So
and I consider myself the top. Yeah.
We do shows on health and stuff because there are objectivists out there. So that
you want.
Okay, let me talk.
Okay.
I'm going to bed now.
Good night. See you in the morning.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Sleep tight. Don't let the bugs bite.
So we do a show on things like the Stone Age diet and stuff like that from an objectivist viewpoint. Is that your...
No. I'm saying if you want to spread objectivism, you have to show that it's applicable to stuff, it's applicable to intellectual problems, and it can make intellectual progress better than anything else.
Intellectual problems, not stuff that's popular? What's your point? I don't get your point.
Intellectual stuff is popular stuff. I mean, everyone has problems. Everyone wants to know more. If you can show people that in their field, whatever their field is, objectivism is powerful enough to solve their problems, they'll do it. I mean, why did Newton and rational empiricism take on? Newton! That's it. Science is how it gets through.
Okay. All right.
So that's how I think. Yeah.
That's more an issue of content. I thought we were talking about format.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
There's no format without content.
Yeah.
You gotta
Yes,
remember.
yes, but it's just I think we need to focus on things like personalities. We need to find strong personalities. We need to get people who are really, really good at sucking people in. I mean, this is what, if you look at what Paul Joseph Watson is doing right now, if you look at what Sargon of Akkad is doing right now, they have strong personalities, they have strong presentation style, they can get in front of a camera at any time, under any circumstances, and talk everybody else under the bus.
So
We
let's
need to find people who are on fire.
just Sargon for a moment. Let's talk about that because
Okay, so you want the populist. What is that any good for?
Aaron, when I'm in the middle of a thought, you cannot do that. Come on, dude. Come on.
I did?
Let's talk about Sargon for a minute because Sargon has his whole jibe going on, and everybody's watching him because of Serena Kirkazian or whatever that thing is.
Anita Sarkeesian.
Yeah, it's the one. And so he's big. And so here's what would be fun, because I agree with him on many things. He's brilliant and so on. Here's what would be fun, to have people like him on the show where we agree on lots of stuff where he would be sort of surprised that he's in agreement with us. You know, here we are, this sort of side group out of the corner that comes and says, yeah, we have all that in our pocket already. We agree with you on that. And we discuss things with him we don't agree on, and we get in sort of these Jerry Springer chair fights on the stage with people that we agree with and love.
Well, the thing is, it's tricky. It's tricky actually finding something to disagree with him on, because I've spoken to him on extensively on Twitter, and I basically talked to him about altruism. I talked to him about collectivism, and I found that he actually agreed with me a lot more than I was expecting, and I couldn't get a rise out of him. I couldn't get an argument going, because that's what I wanted. I wanted to have a proper debate with him, and he is really close to a good, sound, solid philosophy. He just keeps calling himself a liberal.
You didn't see any of his socialism?
Yes, he does, but then he's sort of backtracking. His position's been changing quite a lot lately.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
He's fish bait for us, because that means we can convert Sargon of Akkad to objectivism on air.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically just still got a few hang-ups on things like welfare and things like that. We need to basically discredit welfare.
Okay, so let's say you're right, and he's quite close to us, and epistemologically, spirit, view of life, etc. We do convert him. How many viewers does he have? How many subscribers does he have? And now
Hundreds of thousands. He has hundreds of thousands of people.
And we get him to start saying, read Atlas Shrugged, read Atlas Shrugged, read Atlas Shrugged.
That would be a start. Well, I've had some success doing this myself. I've managed to convince some aristocrats in London to actually get into it.
There we go.
There are aristocrats in London?
Yes, there are.
I thought
all you have to do is get them is focus on an aspect of the book that is directly relevant to something you know they're obsessed with. Find out what they're obsessed with. For example, in this particular case of this particular group I was talking to, they were obsessed with music, and they were obsessed with freedom of musical expression, particularly during the Cold War, because one of the icons of their movement was, or social circle, was oppressed and persecuted by the communists. So I began to explain about Richard Halley, and I focused a lot on Richard Halley, and I began to explain about this is the understanding of this. And they were also, for example, studying George Orwell. So another point I made is that Rand got right what Orwell got wrong. He didn't diagnose how a socialist or collectivist tyranny arises, and he didn't have any solutions on how to address it. So I kept saying to him, if you like Orwell, you should read Rand. She was Orwell, but in every way superior, because she got everything right. She understood how, because Orwell was always very vague on how you get to the problem, and he never suggested any real solutions. He just diagnosed the problem.
So find the angle with given audience, like with Sargon of Akkad, maybe we would find an angle that
feminism. We would talk about feminism, and we would talk about regressives. We would talk about.
But you and I know that when you get people who agree in a room, nothing real happens. People just sit around saying, "Oh yeah, that's true."
Yes, yeah, that's why we focus on.
So here, I guess here's the question: we get his audience to come. But we say something about feminism that to them is provocative, while essentially agreeing with their obviously message that feminism is bad.
Yeah, we would go after the same targets, but from a different angle. So we would address.
No. Let's not bury it in euphemism. We're not going at it from a different angle. We are going to have to attack something he says or believes, get him to squirm, and either get him to renounce us or to abdicate and come to our side on the argument.
All right, that's going to ignore you. What's the matter with you?
Otherwise, there's nothing provocative for people to watch.
But you have to remember, these people are not very antagonistic, and by antagonistic I mean agonistic. And by agonistic I mean they don't want confrontations. Most people don't want a confrontation.
Sargon of Akkad, who says that females are fat and ugly and should stay home and make sandwiches?
Everyone can say that. Look, if somebody says that, it doesn't mean he wants to confront
We have a
them.
Rothschild in the room.
I know, Mr. Rothschild. I'm an
Hey, you idiot. It's like this.
Mr. Rothschild, give an explanation of your name, and if you want to say something
It's a
cogent.
very common name. I know a lot of people in Israel with that name, Antrich.
So, you're all a bunch of objectivists, I was told?
Yes.
Yeah, objectivist-ish people.
Yeah,
Huh?
optimistish, yeah.
I
Ayn
follow.
Rand influenced. Totally influenced by Ayn Rand, yeah. Alice Shrugged.
I got this Mr. Cooks.
Brandon, you seem to have a sense of humor, so maybe you're not fully an objectivist.
That's not true. I'm a leading objectivist.
Those fighting words.
Those are
Yeah,
fun
that's
words.
fighting words. Go ahead. Yeah, I like that. That's a good start, sir. You've made an impression on me, and that's difficult to do.
You know, lots of objectivists, they were a little bit elitist in the past, but not nowadays. Things are
Oh,
getting...
that's still elitist. BS. They're as elitist as they ever were.
Come on. Don't detour
Well,
it.
not all of them.
All right.
Most
Rothschild,
of them.
hey, let Rothschild continue. He has the floor.
What do you want me to say?
Well, explain yourself. You just said I have a sense of humor, therefore I'm not a full objectivist. Explain yourself, sir.
Well, Ayn Rand did not have a sense of humor, and since objectivism is a cult, I would assume her followers don't either.
Oh, no.
Hilarious.
Oh, man.
Ayn Rand was hilarious.
Really? Name one joke she said.
Not funny.
Well, I'll give you a really good example. One of her lectures where she basically describes what the philosophy that people are doing when they don't think they're doing philosophy. She basically listed, I can't remember which lecture it was, but she basically listed all the current things that people say when they don't think they're doing philosophy, and she would list which school of philosophy they were doing. So she'd say that they're doing Hegel or they're doing Marx. The timing on her presentation was absolutely brilliant, and the audience was all over the floor, and she had a great punchline and everything. It was really good stuff. When she wanted to be funny, she was really good.
Hey, Mon, come on, behave yourself.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Please try to continue your thought, Edward.
Well, see, the problem is that because we're a minority in the most extreme sense, it's difficult to really maintain a sense of humor. So I would, but
Well,
it's
I
not.
have a sense of humor.
Yeah. Well, to me, it's all about focusing on the positive. I mean,
Actually, Jews are a minority and they have a sense of humor.
Yeah, but Dan, I don't think you would regard yourself as an objectivist, would you?
No, but I would consider myself an anarchist, and that's in the minority too.
Oh, are you an anarchist?
Oh.
All right. Listen, everybody, Mon, you be quiet for 45 seconds. I want to address anarchism real quick, because you people are everywhere. Here's the problem with anarchism. The Greeks is the setting. That's my example. Now listen to this. Xerxes is approaching Greece with his armies, and he asks his advisor, who is set as the despot over the Greeks? And his advisor says, sir, the Greeks obey no man. They obey only the law.
Right.
That is the essence of freedom. Freedom is a creature of the law. Sorry, it takes guns. Go ahead.
Well, who says I'm against that?
You said you're an anarchist. Oh, you wear on my patience now.
An anarchist in the sense of believing in a polycentric legal system instead of government restricting competition and taxing people instead of allowing people to just choose their own defense agency.
So
Doesn't mean that I'm against
okay,
So gang warfare.
let me propose then. I have a police, a court, and a military system. The court is in case you dump poisonous water on the land and it poisons my well and I sue you. And then there's the police, and then there's a military to protect against people abroad. And let's say that's all I do. I have no roads, I have no radio stations, no welfare state. The government does nothing else. Police, courts, and military, and people are free. Are you okay with the government saying you don't get to shoot each other because we have a court system?
How do we pay for it?
The people have to pay for it voluntarily, or else it will fall apart.
Does the government restrict other? Does the government say if you want to find your own arbitrator, you're free to do so, or will they say if you have a dispute, you have to come to us?
They can fund their own arbitrator, but that arbitrator can't use guns. Only the government gets to use guns. And people have their own guns.
Well, that's not a law. That's not a law. The law which is universally applied. And law is something that's universally applied. Like the law of gravity, everyone is bound by. So if the government is bound by something separate, you don't believe in law.
All right, you bind the government by a constitution.
Yeah, how's that working out right now?
Pretty well.
Really?
Yeah. What do you think about Europe versus America right now? Do you know anything about Europe?
What is that? So you're saying because something else is a bigger piece of shit that the country we're living in now is great?
Do you know? Listen. Listen. Do you know anything about the 1930s and World War II? We had the Great Depression in the 1930s. What do we remember now about that period of time? We don't remember the Great Depression. It wasn't that big of a deal. What was a big deal was World War II. Our problems were teeny, and that's what we're facing today. America's got.
The Great Depression wasn't a big deal. It lasted over 15 years. The Great Depression in 1920 only lasted.
What's our problem? What's our problem in America today? We've got everybody wants to buy the dollar. Everybody's trying to buy homes and factories here.
If you're objectivist, you should be disgusted with
That's completely pointless.
the government that you live under, because it's totally betrayed any of the ideas of freedom. So if you're a real
anarchist,
the government.
Anarchist, let me ask you this. Anarchist, let me ask you this. What do you suggest we do in concrete terms? What action should we take?
In terms of what?
What should we do? What should we get out of the house, take a hand, and start doing?
So I suggested police, courts, and military. What do you suggest? What do you want? You're an anarchist.
I suggest. Can I just speak? Can I just speak?
Yes, go ahead.
I can't
because when I say something, I mute up.
Please.
Right, I mute up and but there's a lot of talk over. So here's the thing, right? You can do whatever you choose that you want to do, provided that you do not aggress upon somebody else. And that's the key word. It's the aggression.
What?
And that can be. Hold on. So that means no coercion, no physical force, no, if you dare, see, he's talking again. We're trying to have a conversation. You can't have a conversation while somebody's running their train of thought and trying to, put over a point for others to listen to and then mute up to hear feedback. That's what I'm trying to do. So
we need a monopoly enforcer.
So the thing is, non-aggression, no theft, no physical harm to anybody, fraud, and stuff like that. So you got to think about that, and that's what government does. Government does aggress against people. It makes people do things that they don't want to do, and it stops people from doing things that they do want to do, and all the demands are backed by police with guns, and I'll mute up at that.
Okay.
I wanna interject something. Like for example, in my case, I'm an objectivist. In general, but I'm kind of on the fence regarding how government should be. If it should be just one agency, or maybe it should be several agencies competing for the best services. Like in my case, I think that an association that all those agencies go under would be better, because there would be checks so that one couldn't abuse its power.
Gato, what do you mean in the concrete of this? I mean, give me a concrete description of what this would look like.
It would look like an association where where they would have meetings, votings for who would be in charge. No, I'm explaining how it would work.
Gato, I
so
didn't ask you to explain me what it would look. I asked you to explain me what it is. It is in respect to concrete. What happens if? The more specific, the better. Because none of us are gonna understand it if you talk about it.
Okay. So you want examples? Is that right?
The best thing to basically explain it is it consensual? If it's not consensual, then it's coercion. And so if you don't consent,
that's not
if you don't consent to something.
No, you just gave me an abstraction. Consensual is an abstraction. I didn't ask for that. I asked you to tell me what is this concrete.
Okay. Let me give you an example. Like the thing is that an association of free people can do exactly the same and much better than what the government does today.
That's not the concrete. That's the reasoning, which is abstract. I asked you to give me the concrete. Do you know what concrete is, Gato?
Okay, let me give a concrete.
Okay.
Auto companies that aren't controlled by unions that are backed by government power do better than auto companies that are backed by government power and controlled by unions. GM is one that was controlled by unions. Ford, Chrysler, all controlled by unions, all destroyed. Toyota, massive. I mean, we had to rebuild Ford and GM from the ashes up. They were nothing in the 1980s. They were garbage, and we had to rebuild them, and Chrysler went bankrupt in the early 80s. They all were totally broken by because the people who were involved in them had a coercive system backing them. And in Toyota, there was no coercive system. They'd get fired if they didn't do their job.
Well, that doesn't relate to what Gato said. But okay.
Well, someone return to the point if they can. And welcome whoever just came in.
Yeah, Kinsella, mute him.
By the way, just a little note. Don't call yourself an objectivist if you can't do the epistemology. If not, you're just a guy who has some...
Claren.
What?
Don't be D2. All right, somebody say something cool. The anarchist to defend himself, and gentleman Stefan Kinsella. I haven't seen you in the rooms before. If you want to introduce yourself and say a few words.
Hello, Stefan.
He has to be unmuted.
I've given him the power to unmute himself. I can't unmute him. Stefan, you have to unmute yourself because we had people come in and troll the shit, so I've turned on certain controls that are very... I can't unmute you. Unmute yourself.
He's typing. He's typing. He says, "Hey, I just got on. I can't talk. Hey, guys, no, I can't unmute because I'm in a hotel room."
What does that have to do with being in a hotel room?
Get out of the hotel room and go walk down the hallway or something.
Why does someone in a motel room watch this and not porn? I don't get
Maybe he's doing both.
He is a he's a patent. He is a patent. He is a patent attorney, but he's anti-IP.
Wife is sleeping. Well, then you can watch porn.
Yeah. A patent attorney who is against IP. No, I've seen.
Against intellectual property rights?
He's against intellectual property. Yeah, he's a patent attorney.
Yeah, because we believe in real property rights.
Go fuck yourself. No, really, that's all I gotta say to people who think that.
Well, that's not an argument telling somebody to go and fuck themselves.
That's not an argument. I'm not arguing.
Guys, intellectual property rights aren't valuable? Are you kidding me? Okay, so let's say now you make a game and it's valuable and people are willing to pay to play it.
Right.
That's obviously a value.
Yes, the game, not the idea.
There's no
people shouldn't get rewarded for that.
So his values are not ownable.
So they shouldn't get rewarded for that. Meaning nobody was gonna ever create anything because he knows it's not gonna be worth money.
That's ridiculous.
So inventors are reduced to beggars now.
Really?
That's what you want.
Did not write any plays? There was no patent system then, or copyright then.
Everyone was bound to a pattern, and if your pattern didn't like you, or you said something your pattern wasn't full, go. None. Which is why we had so much stagnation for such a long time.
It's not true because the reason why we have stagnation and the reason why America is not as productive as what it used to be is because there are so many patent laws. And no, let me finish. Because what is wrong with somebody making a copy of something?
That guy is wrong to begin with. It flies in against everything. I'm not even gonna entertain that idea.
All right, then why?
He's an objectivist. He's not even going to entertain the idea. That's subjectivist.
Why did you mute him if you're not going to entertain the idea? There's 6 other people in the room.
As I said, I'm not going to entertain the idea because it's completely the opposite of what is true, and anyone with any semblance of knowledge can tell you it's the other way around.
Values are not ownable. The purpose of property rights is not to give people incentives.
Okay, let's address that point. What is the purpose of property rights? I say it is not a purposeful thing. It is a result of a fact. That's what I say. So if you believe in this certain fact I believe in, then property rights is just a branch that
property rights is decide who gets the good in question in order to solve a dispute. Someone says it's mine, someone says it's yours. Property rights,
Liren, for me, property rights is a small outgrowth of a central fact. And that fact is the fact that you own your life and no one else does.
Right.
I don't see how that's connected.
Like, you properly own it. You deserve it. It's yours.
If you come up with something else that no one else came up with, no one else came up with it. You did.
That's not a justification for rights. That's not.
Well, if you have guns and police behind you and you have a law, then it is.
So if you tell me a joke, I need your permission if I want to tell it to other people?
Well, if it is if you actually make money off of it, so yes.
Well, why does that make a difference?
Because
either it's property or it's not. Why does it make a difference?
Look, let's say I'm a stand-up comedian and you're a stand-up comedian too. I work really hard to make a stick, and I tell it, and you take it and you make it as well.
Okay,
what does
does
that reward me for working hard? No, it punishes me for working hard, and it rewards you for being lazy. That way nobody's going to ever make anything, and everyone's going to hide it.
Yeah,
Do you want to live in a society, if somebody makes something, he hides it. You're never going to see anything, even though you could enjoy it. Yes or no?
You're talking like you think that he's stolen something from you.
A lot of art was for most of history, if you look into it.
I think it's wrong.
Open up a pizza shop because someone across the street can open a competing pizza shop.
That's what the pizza shop. It's a person gets money for my work in the pizza shop. It's my work that makes the pizza shop, and it's my guy who makes the money get it. That is complete. I don't think you're honest now. I think you're just trying to make up stuff to make this.
Can I put it this way?
Stop talking.
Copying it's wrong because.
Cut it. Let Ed get it.
Because I just want to make one point.
Superfin and then Ed. Superfin, then Ed.
Okay. Copying is wrong if you're using the identity of the person or if you are claiming that you came up with the idea. Otherwise, I don't see that as initiation of force or fraud.
I agree.
You're bad. You're on.
Okay. Well, to me, when a product, when a creation is tied to a person's survival, then it's an extension of their rights to life. Once you accept the rights to the negative rights, once you accept life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, when a person's idea is an extension of their life, an extension of their ideas, when it's an extension of their liberties, when it's an extension of their need to survive, then that's when it's basically it's okay to copyright it. When your livelihood. I think that is an important factor. But if you look at British history, Britain invented the Industrial Revolution. Britain began the modern era, and we had extremely tight copyright laws at the time, tighter than anybody else.
Liran, give me a second. Can I just say, so you're saying that any time that it would affect their livelihood, then, anyway?
You say survival.
Affect their survival, and their survival will be their ability to buy housing, pay their phone bill?
Yes. I mean, because it goes back to the single man on the desert island, using the rational mind in order to survive.
Edward, can I ask you something a second, please?
Okay, but so I'm saying, so can I take it that step? I don't. If you need to resist this step I'm taking, go ahead. But if I'm taking a proper step, fine. You're saying anything that would increase a person's income by having that piece of intellectual property put into law would be something that would be proper to put into law. Because what would it mean for it to increase their income? It means that other people value it, right? They want it. So, am I proper in taking that step?
Kinsella's here now, so if you want, you can explain it.
1 second. What did I say? Edward, do you know what the difference between up-down and top-down arguing?
I would imagine so, yes.
Okay.
I mean, I'm arguing from fundamentals. I'm arguing from starting.
Edward, you're arguing like a rationalist. You're starting with the big postulate, and you want to go down from there.
No, listen.
Someone already agrees with you.
All right, I've got.
No, I'm assuming we've already agree about likelihood to consider happiness.
Why would you convince people that already agree with you?
Come on, you're gonna get kicked out. I'll eject you, and you can't come back. Listen, Ed's been an objectivist as long as you've been alive.
The objectivist person.
He didn't study the epistemology at all that time, because if he would, he'd figure it out.
Oh, come on.
Okay, I'm only looking at this. I could come at this from multiple angles. The angle I happen to choose to come of many possibilities is that patterns are an extension of one's right to life. It is an extension. If you're the man alone on the desert island and you figure out a way of digging a well, you figure out a way of basically creating a tool in order to survive. As Galt says, it is on the desert island that you would need morality most. It is on the desert island you need rights the most.
I agree, but isn't
when you have ideas competing with
you're not going to convince
but that sounds like a positive right.
Mike's not working.
That sounds like a positive right.
Ed, you're not going to convince anyone who doesn't already agree with you if you do that. You have to understand it.
Yes, but we're talking about patterns. We weren't talking about like rights and fundamentals. I mean, if you want to talk about rights and fundamentals, fine, we'll discuss that. I'll convince you of that. Then I'll convince you of patterns. If you want me to do it in sort of fundamental order,
everything has to be induced. Ron, everything has to be induced. If you're a deductionist, you're not an objectivist. I'm sorry. Objectivism is an inductive philosophy.
I have an example. Like, for example, if I am an inventor and I work for years trying to come up with a product, and at the end the product fails, do I have the right for the product to be successful? Just because I put lots of effort into it, it doesn't mean that I have the right to do the work.
If it is successful, you have the right to all the benefits of that.
Right.
100%.
All the benefits of that.
Because it's 100. Because it's 100% of your life that you put into it. It's 100% of your time. It's 100% of your mind.
Yeah. Okay. But you cannot force others to not do the same thing.
It doesn't matter how much of your life you put into it. Nobody else came up with it. It's yours.
Right, I agree. But just to give a point, if you're an objectivist, you're an inductionist. Objectivism is an inductive philosophy. Deductionist can go
Hold on a second, because I think Kinsella wants to say something. He can hear us, but we can't hear him. So go to the cog, Kinsella, at the top of your screen next to the telephone, and click on that and make sure your microphone for your computer is selected.
Anyways, objectivist, deductionist can go somewhere else.
Sir, speak if you are able. We're just seeing if we're doing a mic check on you. I didn't mean to put you on the spot while you're rapping.
Wants to speak. Stefan, we can't hear you.
Okay, there we are. Let's go continue the conversation, whatever we were talking about.
Oh, well. Good luck, Stefan. Oh, ask in the chat if you have questions for us. We might help you with the thing. Yeah. But anyways, I want to ask a question. It's got to be
your settings. Try your settings.
Settings to make him be able to speak?
Huh?
It seems like Kinsella's not able to speak.
That's what we're trying to fix.
It's his microphone. He needs to change it in his settings. Something's...
Why don't you just remove the microphone and speak out of your speakers or something?
That sounds like a good idea.
That's like saying just get rid of your car and drive your hat to town.
No.
Don't knock it until you try it.
Hopefully.
I don't see what the problem is with basically seeing patents as an extension of one's right
Look,
to
it's
supply.
not wrong in the philosophical understanding. It's right. You don't convince other people by saying stuff that you would agree with as an objectivist.
Because it's
and telling
coercion.
them, agree with me on objectivist, then agree with me on this. No,
It's
it's
coercion.
all introduced.
It's coercion.
Well, I think Edward. I think for once I agree with Mon because
You
I
have
think
to verify.
I think Edward is making an assertion. I think you guys should explain it. Like for example, like I'm not seeing why, if you come up with something, you have the right to force others, to not do it. So if you guys could explain that, that would be great.
Okay, so let's say let's say that one of you guys invent a vehicle that runs on air, okay? And I come and I take a photograph of it, right? Or I buy one from you, unless you have a contract with me that says that basically you cannot reproduce this, you cannot reverse engineer, you can't take it apart, you can't reverse engineer it, right? Of which who would bind themselves to such, type of contract anyway? But let's say let's use the analogy. You've got this car. I take photographs of it. I work out how it works, and I build one, right? And now I'm more successful than you are at selling it. Would you regard that I've stolen something from you?
Yes.
How?
Yeah.
You still have the original.
How is that?
The original thing.
Because I made a thing knowing that it's.
Who did you ask that to?
Oh, Brandon, you're really some piece of work. You say you want people to come here and speak. When they speak, you tell them shut up.
He asked somebody that.
Any
Yeah.
of you
Well,
that don't agree with it, that think that it's theft.
Well,
I think
because if it is your means of survival that you created this thing, if you're an inventor, if you come up with ideas as your means of survival, then
Why is that a criterion for property?
Okay, but
Well, it's
that is a
low criterion. I tried to make this point earlier. It's a low criterion. Anything that gives you money is sufficient to meet that criteria.
Yeah.
It's a low criterion.
Exactly.
No one is saying you should be deprived of your money.
Okay, good. Then I get property rights.
What?
There's intellectual property rights if you say that I get all the money that comes.
I just said people should be able to steal your money. I'm not saying that you should prevent people from competing with you.
Well, I think if you come up with something, you have the advantage to use it first. You have the advantage to protect it.
Yeah,
Let me ask you this: you think patents should last forever?
No, get 20 years maybe.
Why? Why is there an
Isn't that arbitrary? Isn't that arbitrary? The 20 years.
Yeah, so let Congress. Listen, let Congress set it, and if the people want to change it to 15 or 30, and maybe medicines are only 5 years, but books.
Why should it not be in perpetuity? Property rights doesn't have an expiration.
Okay, so give intellectual rights in perpetuity.
All of you are not saying this the right way. You know why you have these things to begin with? Why?
Yeah, so certain people can use violence on other people.
Rent seeking.
No, that's not the reason.
Yeah.
Why do we ask these questions? Why do we care?
It's a barrier of entry. It's a barrier of entry.
Because that's what it results in. What it results in is somebody takes somebody's idea. Hold on, I'll tell you. Somebody takes somebody's idea, they make it better, and then that person starts crying. Oh, he's got my invention, it's got part of my stuff in it, starts crying, and then goes to the government, and the government uses force on the poor fucker.
James, why do you care?
Because I do. Because I don't like bullies. I don't like people. I don't like bullies. I don't like people that think like a bully. I don't like people that use physical force or violence on people.
I don't care about the
that have them kidnapped and caged, steal their money. I don't. That's the reason why.
Like for example, guys, let me explain you guys one thing. Like take my example for example. I work as a computer engineer. When I write a program, I usually sell it to a company. I don't hoard it. I don't copyright it or anything. and the money that I get is enough for my invention. If it's a huge invention, you should, charge a huge amount of money for it.
But the company
You don't have to rely on copyrights.
But the company is the one that copyrights it. You gotta remember that. So without copyrights, you wouldn't have a job.
Well, if he does that, it's
That's
their
not
prerogative.
true.
But as for me, I don't do it.
That's not true.
Also, James, as far as I understand, the reason you care is I don't like bullies. Wah! Horrible reason. I don't care what you like or don't like. That's stupid.
Let's
So
not
why
forget
do I
that.
care?
So why did you ask me why do I care?
Because I thought maybe you have a good reason.
It's the major reason that the world's in the state that it's in.
It's an emotional reason. It has nothing to do with my well-being. And that's all I care about, honestly. You just gave me, I don't like bullies. I don't care about that. I care about my life. So I have no reason to listen to you, and so does no one else. And until you give me a reason, I'm not going to listen to your opinion. Daniel, why should I care about your opinion for patents, IP? Well,
I didn't say you should care about anything.
I'm sorry about him. I've rejected him. I apologize. He's crazy. He wrecks everything. He just says, why should we talk about this? Why should we talk about this? Why should we talk?
Sounds like a regular objectivist to me.
No, not at all, dude. Not at all.
I'm just teasing.
Objectivists are much more reasonable than him.
Yeah,
He comes across as very arrogant.
Well, if you guys know Peikoff's dim hypothesis, he's a D2. He wants to disintegrate everything. Everything is he just has an argument against it. If you say men walked on the moon, he says not all men. Russians didn't go to the moon. Okay, good fucking point. And it just goes on and on.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, I just wanted to clarify something. Is the objection to patent laws that it is the initiation of violence?
Right. Let's return to the point. What a derailment.
Because you can initiate, you could be justified in initiating violence against something that isn't violent. It isn't
like
violence.
fraud, for example.
Well, let's just say a pedophile is showing pornography to a child. That's not an act of violence, but you'd be justified in using violence to prevent it.
Well, if you are the parents. If you are the parents,
anybody.
Well, the government would be the government has a monopoly on violence. The government has.
Hold on, Kinsella, try rebooting your computer or something. There's something we
but like
or try the cog.
A pedophile convincing a minor to have sex, wouldn't that be considered as fraud since the minor
he didn't convince
can judge for itself?
Yes.
Just to show it porn. Okay.
There are non-violent acts that require violent responses. Yeah, there are non-violent acts that require violent responses, and stealing someone's idea is an example of that, because that idea is required for their survival.
Oh, wait a minute, you said stealing somebody's idea.
No, wait, yeah, exactly.
Hold on, what have you actually stolen? What have you actually stolen?
The ability for them to survive on it.
Yeah, their life. You've stolen their life.
You're not guaranteed anything in life, are you? Apart from death and taxes.
Well, you can be with a patent law. That's the point.
No, you can't.
You
can't have a guarantee of whether something's going to make money or not. You could spend you could spend 10 years in your mother's.
It's not about a guarantee. It's not about a guarantee. It's about if it makes money, who gets the money. It's not about a guarantee of the fact it's going to make money, but if it makes a motherfucking dime, the person who thought of it gets every fucking dime.
Otherwise, you think. Hold on, wait a minute. Hold on, because otherwise you think that somebody's stolen something.
Yeah, and
what have they stolen?
The person's life.
No, they haven't.
All the money that they should have and would have gotten if it would have been properly theirs to sell, whatever.
How have they stolen that?
Because they thought of it. If the guy who stole it would have thought of it, he would have built it, but he didn't. He stole it.
How can you steal something when the original is still in place?
Hold
on, wait a minute. You've got the blueprints, Brandon, right, for this car. You've got them. They're in your house. They're in a safe. They're locked up.
Where did they come from?
Hold on, wait a minute. You've got them locked up in your safe, right?
Where did they come from?
I see this car. You driving around in it. I take photographs.
No, wait. Where did the blueprints come from?
You allegedly you're telling everybody that you designed them. You put the blueprints on.
I get everything, and everyone else can fuck off and ride horses.
How? How do you get everything? How do you make that claim?
My fucking car, and I have a government with guns, and they'll put you in jail if you build cars.
And you still got your car.
No,
You still got your
what
car.
has been
Hold on, wait a
stolen?
minute. Hold on, let me finish. You still got your car. All I've merely done is come along, took photographs of it, right? And I've reversed engineered it, and I've built a same car.
All right, it'll go before the jury.
I've not stolen
What has
anything.
been stolen? No, I can explain what's been stolen. What has been stolen is the actual value that comes with the exclusivity of the ownership or the idea. It is worth something in its exclusivity, and you've stolen the value of the exclusivity. That is what's been stolen.
There's no guarantee of that.
Well, wait a second.
There's no guarantee of it.
You can't say it's been stolen, because say you could consider that stolen if I go into your house and and crack the safe and get the blueprints. But
Yeah.
if you're showing it to me, like, that's not stolen. That's just copying. That's you're not stealing anything.
No,
Like,
if you're
for example,
making a
It's copying something. You still have the original. You have the original. You have the blueprints. The blueprints
You have
never left.
lost
Never
the
left.
exclusivity.
No,
You've
you
lost
ha-
the exclusivity.
Well,
You
okay,
created something
well,
on the
you-
understanding of the
you have the
put it
exclusivity.
out.
advantage.
Don't put it out.
You made a risk. You took a risk. When people invent something, they take a risk. There's no guarantee, as you say, that will be successful. And so there has to be something to incentivize them to invent in the first place. And that incentivization is the value of the exclusivity, which requires protection.
Yeah, and you should use that exclusivity for your own.
How is this difficult to understand? I don't get it.
Well,
Because-
okay.
because
Let me.
Theft. Copying something is not theft.
Yes, it is.
No, how is it?
You can use your advantage. You
If
can
the
use your
original,
advantage.
if the original is
You don't
still
need
in
the government.
place, what
It
have you
is not
stolen?
the item that has been copied. It is the value of the exclusivity that's been copied.
But you still have that.
No, you don't, because
Yeah, you do.
because the replication negates the
Or
exclusivity.
you have no guarantee of it. Either one.
No, you don't have any guarantee of success. But you do and should have guarantee of the value derived from the exclusivity.
Like, okay. Say, for example, we are in a
Kinsella's back, so can somebody mute him, bring him back into the room?
Yep, I'm turning his permissions on.
Yeah, Brandon probably can do it. Okay,
Unmute yourself, Kinsella.
say we have businesses in the same street, right? So and your shop, if
I'm unmuted.
someone new
Okay.
comes into the scene.
Okay, let Kinsella explain it, because he'll probably be able to explain it a lot better than I can.
Can you hear me? Am I on?
Yes, can hear you now.
Where's my? You got my face too?
Yeah, go ahead.
How do you do the deal where the main talker automatically goes to the middle of the screen?
Yeah, it goes to you. You're on screen. Go ahead.
But I'm showing you anyway. So what's the question?
Well, Brandon seems to think that basically
Anything that has value can be property.
Well, I explained to Brandon that basically if he has a car and the blueprints are in his safe and everything, and I come along and I take photographs of it, basically all I've done is made a copy of it. I've not stolen anything. His blueprints, his ideas are either still in his head or in the safe, and he still has his car. But Brandon seems to think that any money that is made or futurely going to be made from this car that he's got, that I've basically stolen something.
Yeah.
Why?
I can expand on that, but go ahead and give it your answer, Stephen.
Answer to that hypothetical. Well, you don't own money that someone makes by using a car as part of their business, as long as they own the car.
All right. Well, let me expand on the example then. Let's say you invent a weaving machine and no one else has them. They're all using looms, but yours is a mechanical weaving machine. And you encase the weaving machine in sheet metal so no one can see the workings of it.
Yeah, you hide the trade secret.
Right. So for years and years and years, you are the only one that can produce these weaving machines, and you have guards at the doors of the factories, and you keep people out, and only certified mechanics are able to work on them. You are able to protect it for years, okay?
Correct.
And now let's rewind to the beginning of that and say someone stole your blueprint at the beginning, and they went out and produced all these machines, and you not get that exclusivity for years and years and years, which one of you would be richer? The one who had exclusive use of that weaving machine for years and years, or the one who had all these competitors also using your idea? And I just want to expand.
I think you would.
Let me say one more thing. If you didn't show them, they would not have come up with the idea on their own. You would have had 20 years before any other numbskull would have come up with your idea, because you're that brilliant.
Yeah, so I think that in that case, you're the one that's going to make the damages, because the profits, because you can just take them from the trespasser, because he owes you damages payment, which is a consequence of his act of trespass.
Of law. Yeah, it's law.
Yeah, like trespassing is a crime, no doubt. It's an
But he said he trespassed on the property to obtain the information.
Yeah.
All right.
But I think, but the thing is that I think that responsibility.
So
to
let's go back to the car.
Let's go back.
Let's go back to the car. Brandon's invented a car. It runs on air. He didn't have to put gasoline in it. It just runs on air. You know, he turns the key. It starts up. He doesn't have to put any fuel in it whatsoever. And he's driving around in it. I come along, take photographs of it, right? Brandon seems to think that because if I take photographs of it and I actually come up with the same car, that Brandon has the right to use the government to make me give money back to him to compensate him.
I would put that before.
Who's Brandon? Who's Brandon?
I'm Mr. Cropper. I would put that before a jury, and the jury could decide what.
Yeah, but what's the principle that the jury's deciding on? Just do justice?
They would say, did he get enough evidence from the photographs, or did he actually figure the idea out independently, and the photographs gave him some sort of hint, maybe, but not. It really wasn't very material. He actually did quite a lot of
so
work.
you're assuming the law is your side. You're assuming the law instructions are based on the law.
That is another thing. What if someone comes up with the same idea?
No, I'm okay.
You know, independently.
All right, so I'm cheating a little bit because I speak from a lot of historical knowledge about court cases like this, because there are borderline court cases, and at the end of the day, we live in a universe that's really big, and what you have to do is you have to take these court cases and you have to take the principle of law that says you can't steal from other people.
But it's not stealing. When you copy people, it's not stealing.
Yeah, well, it depends. Like in the case of the cotton weaving machines, they decided it was stealing. In the case,
they didn't steal. They didn't steal. They trespassed. They broke in. They went on. They went in. They were not invited to come in to these properties, and they trespassed. They actually came onto actual physical property that they weren't welcome to, and that's what the thing.
Sometimes they just heard things from the people that worked there, and they got the idea. Now, that's
so what if something's out of the public domain then?
So they reverse engineered it from public knowledge. What's wrong with that?
Exactly.
What's wrong with that?
The jury has to decide, was this sort of like so obvious that you can't really say that's that? Or is it something that the person actually has exclusivity on? And corruption in government can make... I'm not defending the way America does things today, because I'm not... America's a mess. But there should be some principle that says we will protect your efforts.
Why?
Period.
Why?
Because otherwise you're not protecting people's efforts.
But that's not what property rights and libertarianism are about. It's got nothing to do with protecting people's efforts.
Livelihood. Can I let Ed?
Everything.
No right to protect your livelihood.
Superfin guy. I want to let Superfin guy have a word, and then Edward Liquor. I'll drink some more while you pound it.
Stefan, I think the government, that's the only legitimate role for the government, is to protect individual rights. You know, so
yeah, but these are not property rights.
Oh, Stefan, yeah, okay. Property rights is anything from including life, liberty, and
no, life and liberty are not property rights.
Yes, they are.
Well, originally John Locke basically said life, liberty, and property, and then Jefferson came along and said life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So if you want to be inclusive in a classical liberal, which is what objectivists are, it's life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness. We don't have to find property within three. It is actually four things. Life,
No.
liberty, property, pursuit of happiness. Because property is an extension of
There's-
your rights. It's an
First of all,
extension
there's no
of your
such
life.
thing as property. There's property rights by owners.
There are
It's just a relationship between an owner and a scarce resource. That's all it is.
Well, then what does
No.
that mean? You're just putting a definition on it saying cars don't exist because I have a definition. Cars still exist.
What?
You say you've defined it, therefore cars don't exist. Cars still exist even if you've defined them. Property exists.
No, property is not a thing that exists. Property is a relationship between an owner and a
No,
resource.
no. You've got a definition in your head, and therefore you think cars don't exist.
Well,
Cars-
wait, hold on. Don't you believe there's property rights?
Yes.
Cars exist. Do you agree cars exist?
Hold on. Let's take this step at a time. You believe in property rights?
No. Let's start with the fact cars exist. Do you agree cars exist?
Yes, cars exist.
Okay. Now you're going to start sounding like nonsense real quick, so be careful.
That's rare.
Go ahead. I'm going to show it.
But what's cars exist got to do with anything? All I said was that you don't own value. That's not how it works. You don't own.
If you own a car, the car's not valuable. Now you've already.
Wait, the car's valuable to me.
Sensical.
No, the car is valuable to me.
This is being recorded, sir. The car is valuable to everybody in society, and it's decided by the Blue Book value and Kelly Blue Book.
Yeah, but you don't own the Blue Book value in your car.
Go ahead, defend yourself. You're a wreck. You're going off the rails.
The purpose of property rights is to recognize the fact that there's a possibility of conflict in society among men. If you didn't have a possibility of conflict, you wouldn't need any law or property rights.
What's the possibility conflict? That's a whole new phrase you're throwing in there.
Well, that's the whole purpose of property rights, is to allow people to avoid conflict in the use of resources that could be conflicted over.
Well,
That's the whole point.
it's not really about avoiding conflict. It's about everyone getting what's proper. You know, what's proper to them.
Justice.
So,
No.
Yeah,
It's about assigning an owner from one owner to every possibly contestable resource, so that we know who the owner of everything is, so that we can avoid conflict
Justice.
over it.
The law is about justice. And you know what the Romans said about justice? I don't think that this is known widely enough. The Romans had a word to say. They said, do justice and let the sky fall.
Yeah, that's so what? That's what I believe in, but you guys don't.
But, you know, the Rome fell apart, so it's not a great example. But I think that it's sort of how America handles things. It's like, you've got to enforce the law. Examples may abound where you're sad about what happens.
But you guys keep jumping around with ad hoc things and examples and rooting in America.
Well, I'm drinking more than you. Go ahead.
Well, the point is, the way you go about this is more systematically in a more principled way, and you start from scratch, and you say, listen, the whole purpose of this whole endeavor, the whole reason for property rights is because there's a possibility of conflict between people, and instead of fighting, we choose a system where there can be one owner chosen to own that thing, and therefore
There's going to be
like say that that I'm in desert islands. There's no possibility of conflict with anyone, but I still tell to myself, this is mine. This is what I came up with. This is
what are you
properly
talking
mine.
about?
I'm talking about property rights.
Yeah, let him do his point.
I don't know.
So, like
I don't
in
know
a
what you're
desert
trying to say.
island, what I'm saying is that in a desert island, there's no possibility of conflict.
Now,
Well, hold on. On a desert island, there's no possibility for rights as well, as Ayn Rand recognized.
No,
Yes, it
not
is.
at all. No, she didn't say that at all.
Completely wrong. Completely wrong.
Like you,
no.
like. Okay, go ahead, Edward.
Yeah, okay. The reason why I specifically brought up Desert Island to begin with is because in objectivism we start with fundamental principles. We start with the individual, we start with the nature, the rights, the nature of existence, what is required for existence. What is required is freedom, what is required is the use of the rational mind. That is an extension of human nature, that is an extension of human existence. And a violation of that, violation of one's freedoms, is a violation of one's life, is a violation of one's nature and
You cannot
existence.
have a violation of rights on a desert island.
Yes, you
Right.
can.
You
Because
can.
Who
yeah,
would violate?
because the whole point is that if you're alone on a desert island, you require your rational mind in order to survive. A human being, a living human being, requires certain things. Requires freedom. Requires the ability to move, the ability to think. Otherwise, you're dead. You're either alive or you're dead. If you're alive, by definition, you are moving, you are free, you are using your rational mind to survive, unless you're a parasite living off someone else's freedom and movement and rational mind. But if there's no one else to survive on, then you have to be rational, and you have to have rights. You have to, even if no one can take those rights away. Even if you do,
you are using them.
No, rights are a reflection
it would be
of
right for you to do certain things.
Rights are a reflection of those freedoms you require in order to survive.
You don't require freedoms on a desert island.
Yes, you do, because if you can't move,
you have
if you require freedom to move. If I cannot move, if I am not free to move,
you either have it or you don't. You don't require it. I don't know what you mean. You require it.
All right. Can I?
You require it.
You have freedom in the desert island. Those are your rights as a human being. That's why they are called rights, because those are the right things that you should have in order to survive.
If I can, I want to elaborate on Superfin Guy's point. He's saying that and Edward is saying that when you have a right to do something, it means that it's right for you to do it. So when you're on a desert island,
it doesn't at all. That's not correct at all.
It's still correct and right for you to act that way.
That's not true. That's completely false. This is a total misunderstanding of rights.
And it's still correct and right for you to act that way in society.
You can keep saying it, but it's not true. You don't have the right, for example, you have the right to be rude to your grandmother. That doesn't mean it's right for you to do it.
No,
what? You have the right? What? No, that doesn't make any sense at all. You know, a right is not something that is given to you by other people. It's something that is proper to you. You know, it's not.
That's what I said.
Yeah. Well, you guys just don't seem to have a systematic or carefully defined case of this. Even Rand was less unclear than this.
Starting with the desert island, that is the system.
Well,
the desert island, you guys are totally. There are no.
I've seen you in a debate with what's his name, the minarchist. I don't forget. Yeah, exactly. I've seen. Yeah, exactly. And the way you behaved in that debate wasn't very good. You know, so. Just want to throw that out there.
Well, Stefan's some sort of socialist.
No, I'm not claiming that. Not Stefan Molyneux. Jen, what's... So I'm not sure if you guys know him. I kind of forgot his last name.
Healthful believes in government, okay? I don't believe in government.
Yeah, he's a minister.
Real libertarian.
You're an anarchist.
Real libertarian, yeah. That's called anarchist libertarians. But that's got nothing to do with this IP topic. You can be anti-IP even if you're confused about the state. But the point is, the understanding of property rights that's propounded here is utterly confused and without a basis. Rand was just wrong in treating values as free-floating existing things that could be owned. You just can't own a value. You can't own a value. She cited Mises, who was correct that value is subjective. That value is just a relation between a valuer and an object or an end.
No. Like Iron Man says that values are objective. That's why we have objective morals.
Wait, hey, let me ask. You can't own a value, and yet I would say that before I go to bed tonight, if I don't eat a potato, I'm in famine right now, and I've got a potato in my hand. And if I eat it, I'll live till tomorrow morning. If I don't, I'll die. And that potato to me is a value, and I own it. And if
potatoes are not valued
from me, I'll shoot them in the
I'll kill them. You value a potato.
I can't. Okay, so the potato's not.
A potato is a resource that you own, presumably. And the potato is valued by some people. If you remember, Ayn Rand even said, consistent with what Mises said was that we demonstrate our preference for certain things. We demonstrate our value in our action. And Ayn Rand said something similar, which was that a value is that which one acts to gain and or keep. So in other words, if you act to achieve something, you show that you value it. Well, that's all that Austrians say. That's a subjective criteria. Okay, so that's a subjective criteria. Value is not in things. It's not an intrinsic quantity that's inside of a thing. It doesn't exist as its own magnitude.
Wait,
And you cannot own a value separate from apart from the thing that you value. This is the big confusion among Randians.
No, Rand doesn't say that. She says that values are objective because as human beings we have to value them. It's not a matter of opinion if we should value them or not. That's what she's saying. Like I agree. They're subject to our to how we value things, but that doesn't make them subjective. That's another context altogether.
Well, you do not own value. You simply don't own value, and you can't show that you do. What you own is the right to control the physical borders of and the physical integrity of a given scarce resource that you have homesteaded or acquired by contract from a previous owner. That's basically all that any person ever owns. You don't own values. You don't have the rights to the fruits of your labor. You don't have the rights to the creations that you create.
Well, wait a second.
In that case, you don't have a right to life. If you don't have the rights to the fruits of your labor, you don't have a right to life.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you don't have a right to life, then all the rights and all law goes down the drain.
My charger and bring it out here.
Because human beings are fundamentally producers and creators, fundamentally, and it is necessary that we be producers and creators in order to live. For human beings to live, we have to be producers and creators, and that production and that creation has to be protected.
Sorry,
otherwise
I floated
our
out.
lives can't be protected. You can't protect life without protecting the production and creative process of the individual.
But that's just not an argument about what you're talking. First of all, there's no right to life.
Well, in that case, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution mean nothing to you. And
well, I thought we were libertarians and reasonable people. What the hell does it matter what a bunch of politicians?
I think you're dropping the context here constantly.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing.
Well, if you don't believe in the value to life, then nothing else really matters. Literally nothing else. Without life, there's nothing else. There's no meaning, there's no purpose, there's no law, there's no society, there's no politics, nothing else. You have to start life before you get anything else. It's axiomatic. Existence is axiomatic. You don't, we start there, and you're rejecting the fundamental axiom that everything else follows from.
Just dormant philosophical assertions.
So let me
This is not
let me
a
ask you,
philosophical
Edward.
assertion. It's self-evident.
Let me ask you, Edward. Where do these rights come from?
Well, they're basically a reflection of the liberties required for human existence.
Yeah, but where do they come from? Who says that you have these rights?
Well, they come from reason and justice. That's where they come from.
Okay, so you're saying they come from a group of people?
No.
No.
Reason.
They come from our nature.
Reason isn't consensus.
Well, let me glad you back.
Reason is basically the result of the collection, systematization, and categorization and integration of observed reality. So we basically
you have these so-called rights, right? Because earlier on you referred to the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, or somebody referred to.
Yeah, because he's arguing from a legal perspective.
No, I'm arguing from a libertarian perspective. That's not true.
Of the Constitution, right? So, I mean, do you believe in the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence?
Well, I don't have to. I'm not American.
Why would you appeal to it?
Well, I wasn't appealing to it. I was just pointing out that if you're an American, it is the reason why you have any life worth living at this point.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
The thing is that the Constitution doesn't give you the rights. It just protects
yes, it protects them. Without protection of your rights,
how does it protect? How does a piece of paper?
It takes rights.
How does a piece of paper that some men have scribbled down some words on it?
What's the fact that the men got to do with anything?
Protect them.
If the reasoning in which it cites is sound, then the reasoning it cites is sound.
But you're trying to say then that everything that they wrote down in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, if the reason is sound, all of a sudden they become universal. Everybody agrees with them.
The words on that piece of paper have set up a government that takes millions of dollars of taxes from people every year. That's not protecting their rights.
No, of course not, because the government that we have today isn't the government that we were supposed to have.
Well, apparently some objectivists now are admitting that the government has to extract taxes. Like David Kelly and Jan Helfeld have conceded this now.
Yes, well, David Kelly is an open objectivist, not a closed objectivist, so he doesn't count, quite frankly.
Doesn't count what?
Well, because he's compromised the fundamental principles of objectivism. Objectivism is a closed system. I mean, you don't get to say take bits out and sort of mix it in with libertarianism. Libertarianism and objectivism are two different things.
Well, libertarians aren't calling for taxes.
I don't care what libertarians are calling for. I'm not libertarian.
They are voluntary ways